Hello everyone and welcome to Fight Night Rising. We are on set 5 Reckoning finally and it is here. My name is Khroen and alongside me is Boopasaurus. Boop, finally. The week wait, but we are here. How are you feeling about set 5 tonight?
Oh, so good. My LP has definitely gone through a reckoning for this set, and it's actually really crazy. We have our first couple masters appearing on the ladder, and a couple of them are here with us today. So I'm so excited to see a brand new set. Everything is new. We've got all the spatula items, all the shadow items, and a lot of really interesting team comps that could do really well in certain situations. So I'm really excited to see what's going to pop out as unique team comps in set 5 versus ones that are going to be a little bit more consistent.
Definitely. There's so much to talk about and we have 4 games to do it, but first let's talk about who we're going to see competing here tonight. We got, of course, the returning champion INTC a couple weeks back. We also have Sphinx, a name that you know and love, Boop. We have Killjoy Mex, we have Chewy, we have Ueckar, Marcel P, Duskglade, and El Tomo to round out the lobby.
So I'm super excited about this particular lobby, which is something we say every time. But in reality, this one's really interesting because I think we have a really nice separation of really good players versus experience, right? You've got
Yeah.
Marcel, who's been around forever. When it comes to some of this, what it feels like for this TFT stuff. And then you've got people like Sphinx who have been around the same amount of time but haven't found that same type of public success, right? And then you've got other players like Killjoy and INTC that are just now making a name for themselves. But I do believe that each one of them brings something special to the table. So how the experience versus results actually come to life here in these first couple lobbies is going to be really interesting to me because something that we talked about before we got on here today was the fact that I think this is Sphinx's set. Sphinx has always been known as a really long game type of player, can think ahead really long. I'll never forget that time he ran 8 divines in set 4
Yeah.
and was able to call that and get a top 4 out of it. So I think our top 4 players and the ones that like our consistency and the Nosters, the Sphinxes, right, are going to do pretty well in this particular meta as they're going to have a lot more vacancy of choice and skill expression to show us.
Definitely, and top 4 is going to be on mind for all these players when it comes to the prizing that they can earn from Fight Night. Top 4 will earn some money. First place, $100. Second place, $50. Third and fourth, $25. But it is the top 3 that will be invited back for next week to see if they can defend their title or just win some more cash. But I definitely agree with what you're talking about, Boop. This set is going to be very interesting for players to adapt to, and some players, like you mentioned, Sphinx, already kind of are playing with a good style, in your opinion, to the set. We do have, it's early on to the set, and we did have the B patch happening just last night, right? So the meta is already kind of going through a loop. We saw the nerfs onto Legionnaires, so the nerfs onto
Huge nerf on
Helios.
Legionnaire.
Yeah, huge nerf
Yeah.
on Legionnaires. It was like 75% attack speed at I think it was at the 8 Legionnaire, but Helios getting nerfed by, I believe the math works out to about 20% damage, maybe a little less than that, but that's pretty impactful. LeBlanc as well, something that I played a lot in the beginning of the set, getting nerfed. She's actually mana locked now and will not go back up to max mana with a very dark blue buff under 60% HP. But speaking of that, there's like a lot of new items. There's all the shadow components that we can make double the items with. So there's a lot of things to discover in this set. And I think that's the beautiful thing about set 5 and why it's going to be the most competitive set that TFT has ever seen, because there's so much more player agency, but then so many more options to actually have to calculate and go through to lead you to lobby wins and to tournament wins.
Something that we always say about TFT and why it's such a cool game is everyone has the same amount of information at all times,
Yep.
right? And what happens when you add more information, right? One or two things, less choice because there's just so much that the simple choice, like Occam's razor, is the way to go, or which is where we are at right now in set 5, which is so many different forks in the road. I remember in last set, the fork in the road was literally just 2 directions,
Yeah.
right? But you might come up with your armory and get given a shadow sword with a regular BF sword, and all of a sudden you're staring at your armory for the next 25 seconds, right?
Yeah.
Deciding exactly what you're going to do, because now all of a sudden that information that we've talked about before becomes even more important, and there's more of it now. So the better players who are going to be able to remember most of it are going to find a lot of success in this particular set, and the ones who can scout effectively and can gain information without having to consciously learn it during a game are going to do really, really well. That seems super simple, but when it comes to a new set, there is a learning curve, right? Some people just take to it, and some people need to see someone else take to it, and then they perfect it, right? And we're going to probably see a lot of that today too.
Yeah, and no matter what happens, right, in TFT, there's only so much time to work with. You had the preparation phase, but if you have to just think about just straight up more things that we've ever had to in the past, it's going to perhaps lead to players maybe making some, dare you say, like, mistakes. Like, I know it's impossible to play a perfect game of TFT, but you might be thinking about that, you know, shadow sword versus sword, having to think through, like, 5 seconds, let's just say, oh, do I want to make a shadow deathblade over a regular deathblade, and do I want to have that drawback? Is it worth it, having to calculate all of that with still doing everything else you need to in TFT, right? Positioning, scouting, gold economy management, just every little factor coming into it. But we'll see how players are going to be making these decisions as we load into game number 1 right now. Boop, let's take it away. On board with Sphinx.
All right, so we're going to be on board with Sphinx, and one of the first questions you're going to ask us is, what item should we start with, right? If you ask K3 Sochu, belt, because that's what someone else starts with. But for other people, again, it's more about, yes, there are power levels, but as you're kind of starting, if you're just getting used to this set, try a bunch of stuff, right? I actually think most of the item components have a direction you can go to. Some less flexible than others, right? If you pick up a sword, you're going to have way more options than if you pick up a tier, right? But in the end, you're still going to be able to do something, right? There are some times in the previous sets where you would get 2 tiers to start with, and you're like, all right, I guess I'm getting 5th place. It can still happen. Like, you can have that bad luck, but it is way less frequent in this particular set because of the armory and because of all the access to items that you can get as we start things off. And I think maybe the best way to start is to talk about champs, and then we'll talk about the items that go along with it. And right now we're seeing Kalista, which is probably one of the stronger early game champs you can even ask for, especially at tier 2.
Yeah, definitely, and she's going to be able to allow you to run a couple Legionnaires we find in Aatrox. Generally putting some pseudo-carry items onto Kalista is fun, like Rageblade that we have the potential for Sphinx is going to be good on her, but she also leads into potential of Abominations. If we find a Brand and a Nunu, that's going to be a very, very strong early game synergy. It's kind of comparable to like the Cultist of set 4, not quite going to be as strong. You don't really, go 5 Abomination in the late game. At least players haven't so far, but still gonna be an option for like 3 or 4 Abomination synergy in that mid game. But we do have a pair of Aatroxes actually, so Legionnaires might be on the table here for Sphinx.
And Legionnaires are really interesting because I think a lot of players can get baited into thinking that a Legionnaire is something that you have to commit to, right? 6 Legionnaires got a huge nerf, but what tends to happen is you'll get like 4 Legionnaires and 4 Nightbringers, and you'll be in like the middle of a couple comps. And that's what I think Legionnaires can really find a lot of difficulty with. We're going to have Redeemed Knight on board right now, and Varus in the backline with that Rageblade. Super strong item this set, both versions of it. And this Varus is going to pump out some damage. That ultimate is going to give auto attack based procs onto every ally that it hits, and also do the damage to the enemies. And we're actually going to be able to take down potentially a Warwick with Warmogs because of it.
Yeah, nearly. Poppy with a couple more auto attacks. Alright, she crit that one, so the kill does come through. But speaking of item slams, we saw the Ginsus, but we saw Marcel slam a Warmogs, and that's an item that people in set 4 would steer clear of in the early game, but now it can find its way onto units that use max health very effectively, Mordekaiser being a fantastic user, but also just like Dawnbringers, right? Dawnbringers will heal a percentage of their maximum health depending on how many Dawnbringers you have, so it's fantastic to put it onto one of them in the early game as well. Warwick, it just makes him tankier, so he gets more ultis off. If he gets a kill with it, he can reset and chain, more suppresses, he heals himself, so going to be a fantastic item that will find use throughout the whole course of the game.
That cloak will most likely become a QSS or Bloodthirster. When it comes to going
Could be
onto that
Runins.
Varus. It could be Runins as well. Rangers are a really, really fun comp to run here. I know you definitely preferred them once this came out. Do you want to walk us through the situation we're at here? Because this is a very common opening, the Redeemed Knight opening. Where could this go? Because if you look at the bench, there's a lot of options.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. This comp could actually go a lot of different directions. This Rageblade could still not only find its way onto like an Aphelios being an attack damage carry, but it can find its way onto some AP carries as well. I think the most capped board that players consider, what capped meaning just strongest board in the late game in TFT is like a 4 Invoker, like Heimerdinger Teemo carry board, and Rageblade is going to be a fantastic item on both a Teemo and Heimer. But it also can just go into Redeemed Knight. Actually, a player who had a lot of success recently in Twitch Rivals, Noob Owl, one of the up-and-coming great new NA players, played a lot of 4 Knight in the mid-game, and we have some more Knights in Sphinx's shop with the Nautilus and Thresh, so could go that direction. It's kind of hard to just make 4 Knights and only 4 Knights work, but definitely going to consider that for when we level up to level 5 and perhaps level 6. But just going to go for some Legionnaires here and swap this Rageblade over to a Yasuo. He's benefiting with the Nightbringer buff as well because the Sejuani is in there.
And Yasuo is one of the coolest new units, in my opinion, in the game. A truly hybrid unit in TFT, which I don't feel like we've really had since like Riven. From a couple sets back, like the AP Riven with like the tank items, so like kind of hybrid tank. But Yasuo can be built with like a kind of with anything. It really depends on what the game state is at that point in time, and that's not really a sentence that you would say a lot in sets 1 through 4, right? So if you're noticing that, oh, my Yasuo can use this Bloodthirst but also use this Jeweled Gauntlet because it's AP damage, right? There's going to be a bunch of different ways of getting value out of that Yasuo, especially since after the ultimate you get an attack damage increase, but the ultimate is magic damage, and there's a lot of ults in the game like it, but I think Yasuo, in terms of how it was developed, uses both of those traits really, really well. So that's definitely something to experiment on. Can hold any items for your comp, and again, with so many options in the late game, sometimes units like Yasuo who can hold both versions of the items will allow you to pick a little bit more options later on in the game.
Definitely on board with INTC. INTC picked up a Nidalee with a Shadow Bow on the Carousel and might opt to play for Dawnbringer here. That's going to be a great early synergy. Going to offer a lot of healing. I believe it's 60% of maximum health you'll heal when you drop below 50%. So INTC not opting for that, did not want to level up, is actually choosing the Econ instead. But something that we also saw in the Carousel were 3 spatulas, and I'm really curious to see where those spatulas end up going, because there is double the amount of spatula items, right? You can make a lot of things that necessarily people won't gravitate towards, right? Maybe I'm thinking like Renewer or like Coven, things that generally aren't really going to find its way, but it still can, right? And that's the fantastic thing about set 5, is that you can take unorthodox strategies, unorthodox items, but still find a late game comp that counters some of the comps that have solidified themselves at the top of the meta.
I totally agree. That's, again, why we're so excited about today and what we're going to see from these players. And looking at the bench right now, we've got Dawnbringers and Legionnaires. The Dawnbringer comps are really easy to start with. This kind of Dawnbringers kind of remind me of Cultists in a sense that it's easy to get all the Dawnbringers, right? But how to effectively use all those Dawnbringers, I think, is the hardest part, right? Who's going to be your carry? Who's going to start being your carry? Is it going to be Nidalee eventually? Who else is going to be here, right? Are we going to try to go Invokers? Are we going to add some Renewers? But we are going to get rid of some units, and we have some Shadow items, and so that would be a Shadow Static Shiv, which would, I believe, hurt your allies. Which one is the Static Shiv Shadow version?
Yeah, the Static Shiv Shadow version, I believe it's every other auto attack. It'll proc deal magic damage, shred the magic resistance of enemies, but it reduces, I believe, the attack damage of the holder by, I believe it's 33%. I'll have to double check myself on that one. Yeah, holder receives 33% minus attack damage, but it's every other attack as opposed to every third, like the regular Static Shiv.
So a lot of those procs have been... Actually, Shiv, not an awful item. Like, you could
Shiv's
not...
a good item.
Yeah, you could not tell me, like, There are definitely like a tiers of items, but in terms of the very low tier, I think there's a lot less there than in the past. Like for example, Bloodthirster might as well not have existed
Yeah,
last set.
exactly.
Static Shiv may have not existed last set, and now you're seeing it on things like the Ziggs, for example, to start things off. But we're still going to be running redeemed here as we look around the board. We still see Legionnaires, a lot of redeemed so far. We're getting our first Mystics and the old LeBlanc comp with that blue buff there. Mort won a game recently after the nerfs with that LeBlanc comp, so definitely not dead according to Mortdog.
I saw someone else run it too, actually. I forget who it was, but they had rerolled and found like a Morgana 3 and LeBlanc 3. Didn't even have a blue buff. I think it was just like an IEGA Hodge, but still ended up winning the lobby. It was still good, so just because things get nerfed doesn't mean that they're dead. You can still find success with them. I think a lot of people are still realizing that, at least when it comes to Mordekaiser and Aphelios, the two, 4-cost carries that were really targeted in that B patch. But moving on board, we see some Hellions, Knights, Rangers, and that Ziggs and Static Shiv. The Ziggs base attack speed before the B patch came through was like 0.85. It was actually too insane. So I think it's definitely good that Ziggs got nerfed. But still, he's really, really strong and able to provide a lot of early game potential that can still allow someone to go to level 8 or level 9 perhaps.
I actually, one of my friends had a really good example of it when I was playing with them, is Ziggs used to be the Flash, right, and is now Usain Bolt, right?
Yeah.
Still really fast, still really good, just not superhuman.
Yeah,
Right?
that's a good comparison. That's a good comparison.
And so I think that's a really good way of understanding how that shiv works, particularly on units like Ziggs. It's less about the stats that it's giving you, but more about who attacks the fastest, right? So a lot of people would do double static shiv back in the, before this B patch. Some people might get a little crazy and put a rage blade on as well if you're feeling spicy and if it's left over. But we're looking towards Hellions right now, who have been destroying me on on ladder, and it has been, if anyone knows anything about me, it is my eternal disdain for Yordles. And so this is really hard for me, but this is a really good comp. Hyperroll Hellions will get you a top 4, potentially a lobby win with the right items. And Kennen 3 got nerfed, but is still pretty good.
Yeah, that's very interesting actually, because you can take this composition. It's a lot of 1 cost and 2 costs, of course. Ziggs, Poppy, and Kled being the 1 cost, and you can tier 3 them. You can find your way into a top 4. Generally going to be a little bit less good than just using them as an early game kind of like bridge to get you to the, I guess, 4 Invoker kind of like capped board at the end. You can still take it other directions as well, but a lot of people are going to have that in mind. Looks like this round is going to be a loss. The Hellion comes back, but doesn't have any items. It is a 0-star instead of just the 1-star. As well. We don't have 5 Hellions either. Need the Lulu for that one.
The one thing I'm like really interested in is how the players are going to start using economy, right? So a lot of the times, the general rule of TFT is go to level 6 at 3-2, go to level 7 at 4-1. Right? Yep. And a lot of people will still do that. That's always probably going to be an effective way of play. But, there are slow roll options around. There are a lot of really good 4-cost units in this set. So how people use their money and invest it early versus mid game is going to be pretty intriguing to see how the late game ends up being. Because I think the mid game in this particular set is a huge deal. You do not want to lose HP in this mid game because team comps get so strong by the time the game is over.
Yeah, and speaking of that, INTC definitely not wanting to lose HP because they've slammed every single item component that they have. There was the GA, Thieves Gloves, Rageblade, and a Shadow Static Shiv, or Static Stiletto, I believe the name is, and they're all really solid items, and because of that, INTC is going to win the round. We're going to see Ueckar move to a 2-loss streak and maybe be first pick on the carousel. Looks like they've lost the 50-50, unfortunately, so they're not first pick. Feels bad, man. No Lulu either to get the 5 Hellion online, but see what item that decides to take here. There's a few items on the bench. There's going to be the spatula, the sword, and the tier. Alright, we take a shadow, I believe it's shadow bow, yeah. I wonder what that's going to turn, it could turn into a Hellion spat actually. Shadow bow and spat is Hellion.
Oh, that is true. So who is, okay, one, everyone is cute as a Hellion. They do shrink, which is one of the
Yep.
greatest design choices ever in TFT. Do you like how whenever I talk about that, it's always about like the cute stuff,
Yeah.
like the fact that you can make things slide down the slide, right? Like that.
Yeah.
I probably screamed about that for
Oh, here
2
it
whole
is.
minutes. But yeah, we're gonna make a Philios a Hellion. That's
Mini
actually
Aphelios.
mini Aphelios, and that's it. No Nightbringers to go along with it. No, no other Rangers to help with that attack speed. I tend to like putting tankier units as Hellions, but might just be holding on to it because it's a high cost unit.
Yeah.
Because we also needed the 5th Hellion to do something with this comp.
Yeah, the sword goes there. Generally, Aphelios items, just, without the odd scenario that is excuse me, Aphelios Hellion is going to be Deathblade, Rageblade, and then either like a BT or Runan, something of the sort there. But definitely with the Deathblade and the Rageblade. So we actually do have both of those items still available, potentially. The matter at hand is, can we get there? There's no ranger buff, of course, buffing up the Philios, but just with the Hellion, he has 50% bonus attack speed. Varus is bought, and it's on the bench, actually a pair of them now. So definitely thinking about this option, but we are nearing the Wolves round. Nobody is super low in HP. We do have a couple low players, Sphinx actually being one of them, as well as El Tomo. Marcel, though, off to a strong start, up at 92.
Just lost though, and this is another thing about this particular meta is when we hit 4-1, the power dynamics might completely change, and then they might change again at 4-2 depending on what item you get. So because the 4-2 armory is one of the most impactful because it's the last one, right? So
Yep.
if you need to finish up an item, hopefully your armory gets you that. And so the idea is that by 4-1 you have the package that you're going to be working with for the rest of the game, and then you put the bow on that package with your final item. That's not always going to be the case, and there's going to be some flexibility involved, but that is how early game comps start to fall off, is everyone kind of evens up again. It's always been this way in TFT, by the way. The games have always tightened up around 4-1 and 5-1,
Yep.
but again, here it's a little bit more impactful as we finally do sell that Kha'Zix with RFC, the Shadow RFC, which only gives attack speed if there are no units within 2 hexes of that unit using the RFC, the Shadow RFC. But it will still have that 100% hit rate, which is really good because Nidalee is being played in this lobby, I think a couple places. So the RFC is going to make that a little bit easier to take care of. But we have one of the stars of set 5 so far has been since the beta, which is that Karma. Pros have loved this character. People love how she works. But yeah, what is the build right now? A lot of people kind of deciding. This is what you see a lot of, is definitely that Jewel Gauntlet and blue buff.
Yeah, definitely Jewel Gauntlet blue buff. Was actually surprised that Killjoy didn't hadn't already slammed the Jewel Gauntlet. Wonder what else they perhaps were waiting for with that rod. Maybe a death cap, which is more consistent, but of course if the spell is crit, that's going to be better. And also just having the Gunblade to heal up if Karma does take any damage, has Dawnbringer to do that as well. These are very good items, and I think with the potential of that Shadow RFC there, it begs the question of like where that item's actually going to go. If we're running this like Invoker board, it maybe wants to find its way onto, as I was mentioning earlier, the Heimerdinger or the Teemo, but we're still level 7, not at those units yet. It looks like Killjoy is going to be leveling up soon though, but needs to still have enough HP to work with once we get to that point. We'll see when exactly Killjoy decides to pull the trigger, because it's probably going to be either now and not have a lot of gold to roll with, or after the stage 4 carousel and then do it at that point.
So I'm going to talk about a little bit more about what I talked about before. As you notice that Killjoy, bottom of the leaderboard, did not have anything to improve their team in the armory. So we actually haven't really changed power outside of the champs that we're going to be able to tier 2. So this is why you're going to see Killjoy rolling a bit, because one of the units that actually, I'm going to re-say this. All
Sure.
of the 4-cost units benefit incredibly from tier 2, right? They're, I think, weaker on the tier 1 side of things than other 4-cost units in the past, but once you get that tier 2 karma, things really start working out for you, especially if you get 4 invokers in and she's ulting every single auto attack.
Yeah. It looks like that Hellion Aphelios has the Rage Blade, so just one sword away from pretty perfect items. The Karma, though. Karma's going to be huge in this matchup. The Kennen does stun it, though. Kennen's such an annoying unit. It did nerf Kennen in the beat patch, but still. Those stuns coming through, I guess, change the course of this round, and Killjoy takes another loss, drops to 29. And Killjoy like had spent some gold into leveling up, realized after that round I'm way too weak. So now they have to roll, they find the pair of karmas and an upgrade on the Syndra, but nothing else is there. So Killjoy's going to be forced to roll probably again before stage 4 is over, find some more upgrades. Hopefully it comes with the Karma 2, Taric 2 though, and that's going to find its way onto the board somehow.
Steals the Tarics away from another player as well who was using the Ashe and the Varus, probably going to be transitioning into Kale a little bit later, and a monster still within this game. And we have our third Invoker. We still want the 4, and we do find that Karma too, so it's going to be a little bit more beefy. We have the Dawnbringer for her as well. That's why the Gragas is in the front line, and the Morgana in the front is also going to be locking down a lot of people, probably one of the best mystics in the game, especially with any version of Morella Nomicon, the more evil Nomicon or the Morella Nomicon. So good on Morgana. Morgana actually uses a lot of the new items really well.
Yeah, she does. In fact, generally you want that Morello's or the Shadow Morello's and GA on the Morgana is to make sure she gets that stun off on the units, applies everything, or applies that healing debuff and the damage over time effect, but she still can use others very effectively. Generally tanky items, I think, like sometimes we see ZZ routes on Morgana in this set, sometimes like Dragon Claws and things of the sort. It looks like Killjoy has stabilized, fortunately, after finding that Karma 2, and that was the key thing, right? Like, if Killjoy found Karma 2 and still lost the round, this game would look pretty doomed. But it's not only the Karma that got upgraded as well, right? There was the Taric coming through, Morgana 2. That Gragas will be taken out eventually, just as you mentioned, going to be that Dawnbringer synergy. But what did we grab on the carousel?
Kindred. So we have 4 Mystics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Potential for Mystics is there. It's just hard to fit that in while being level 7, though.
If you try hard enough, that's why I was telling you earlier. I like 3 Cav 4 Mystic as a cool like comp to top 4 on. Like I call those comps. I've called them consolation comps before, right?
Yeah,
where you just aren't getting what you need, right? And so you're like, I'll do this. Ari was, I think, the best definition of consolation comp ever. Back in the late stages of set 4, and then yeah, I think that goes along with it. And we have honestly one of the strongest units in the game still, even post nerf, which is surprisingly Ivern.
Yeah,
that was one of those units that you saw, right, and you picked, and you didn't, I think, quite realize how much work this Ivern was doing. I need to have a 2 hex surroundings, stun on on Daisy
it's too good.
It was too good. This is still good. Also, Daisy has a pretty high base attack damage that a lot of people don't realize. Plus, Ivern is also an Invoker, so you're going to be getting that stun over and over and over again. It's going to feel like it's 2 hexes still sometimes when that Ivern gets going, as we have one over here as well, as we also have a Syndra with Rage Blade Static Shiv, and it looks like it's working.
It does, actually. Widely enough, and playing win streak boards in set 5 seems really difficult because the question is, how do you transition out of it? You don't already, you're not rolling down at level 7 for your 4-cost carry, and then your direction's very certain. You have to make a lot of kind of like feeling weird transitional key moments and things like that, but at least saving your HP is going to let it be a lot easier to top 4 with. But moving over to Dawngglade's board, right? Dawnglade was running the 3 Coven with the LeBlanc holding the blue buff and the death cap for so long. Now when this transition comes through, it seems like almost too late, actually. I mean, 19 HP on an 8 loss streak. Sure, the board looks pretty strong right now, but only tier 1 frontline, right? With a tier 1 Volibear, Rel, and Nautilus. We have a Kale in the back to round out the 3 redeemed, but she only has the GA, but maybe it doesn't matter because Vel'Koz does a ton of damage.
So, and this is the thing about Vel'Koz right now, is arguably the only consistent magic damage in the game like this that's going to be able to pull this kind of damage away from the team. So The unfortunate thing around that is that makes it really easy to counter. And so that's why if there's like a Vel'Koz lobby, you'll see almost everyone splash a second Mystic in their
if not more.
in their team comp. Yeah, exactly. Plus you have Ironclads and Knights that just block a set amount of damage too. And so there's a really easy ways to counter the Vel'Koz, just not in the greatest spot right now. However, if the lobby is a bunch of Yordles, for example, that Vel'Koz is going to do quite well. So again, it really is about identifying the state of the game. The hardest thing about this Vel'Koz comp is you're going to have to commit before you might understand that state of the game. You have to make a couple assumptions. But if you're right, you're going to get paid off with the top 4, no problem. If not, it'll be, you know, a round by round thing, depending on if this Vel'Koz ults a la Aurelion Sol from last set, right? How many times did that did those rounds come down to an Aurelion Sol ult? Right? And an Olaf. And so kind of the same thing here with the Vel'Koz.
Exactly. The last PvE round that will give components comes through. Oh yeah, the spatula from Duskglade went to an Ironclad spat, so that's going to be solid into the Aphelioses. There's a couple people running those. But what are we going to put in now? It looks like maybe just a Viego. Viego's such an interesting unit. Being able to steal a unit, bring it to your side, and if it jumps to a corner, ooh, this looks like the wrong corner, unfortunately, though. So it's just going to find a Callista instead of the Aphelios on the opposite side.
And we're going to go ahead and look at some Legionnaires as well for a Sphinx. And Sphinx has played the late game a lot better than some other friends in this lobby. And even though this Aphelios is going to eat that ultimate, this is not over. There's actually not a ton of damage outside of that Kale. But yeah, we got the CC, that Ivern, and that Zyra helping lock down that Aphelios. And I think this is a really good time to talk about CC in this set, which is the people that have it are meant to have you know what I mean? There isn't a lot of Sejuani type of CC. Both Kennen and Ryze, right, will single target, or technically single target. Definitely the first one for Ryze, and then requires a second cast for Ryze to get the AoE, and then Kennen requires that travel time. So yeah, when it comes to AoE CC, Diana, Rel, it's definitely there, but not as
easily
pervasive.
Accessible.
Yeah, not as easily. That's the right word as some other comps, because you're going to have to sacrifice power more often for that CC in this set, which is why a lot of those Mystic comps with a lot of units with shielding and potentially CC don't have the ability to do the damage, right?
Yeah.
So that's the give and take here. But this Aphelios versus Draven dynamic is going to be something that we're probably going to see all set, as Aphelios gets stolen by Viego, who is the Lee Sin of this set, by the way.
Yeah, pretty much. Feels sometimes as frustrating, sometimes a bit less. I mean, doesn't necessarily just insta-kick the unit off the board. There is that cast time where Viego can be interrupted, and it will not steal your unit. Sphinx, however, maybe needs to position a bit more, you gotta position away from Diana's and Viego's, as well as dodging things like Shroud and Zephyr. So it's actually, there's so much to have to position around once we get into the end game, when everyone has their stuff online. Sphinx is in a very rough spot here. He has 4 Legionnaire, 4 Nightbringer, so like you were talking about earlier, he's kind of in the middle of a couple of comps here. When we generally think about Legionnaire, it's, okay, I'm running 6 Legionnaire, and Draven and Mordekaiser are my carries. I have a Diana in to give me 2 Dragonslayer, but with the Legionnaire spat, Sphinx definitely intelligently recognized that you can make Aphelios work and has the items for it. It just doesn't really give all the attack speed that, say, a 6 Legionnaire would.
Totally right. And this Aphelios is pumping out damage, will top frag every single round, but again, you're seeing the nerf for sure on a couple units that you're seeing on the board right now. We are going to be able to get the win onto INTC.
So close, actually.
The Aphelios on the Legionnaire is going to just gain flat attack speed, and that's going to help the Rageblade stack a little bit better, but it's a 20% damage nerf on every auto attack, not just on the ult or something like that, right? It's 20% less damage each time. So cumulatively, the Aphelios is going to be doing even less damage than before, but you're seeing right now, just because it's nerfed doesn't mean it's bad. Legionnaire spat one of the better spats to put on any auto attack based champ. Could be really good on people like Jax as well if you're feeling good about that and the skirmishers. But we're going to go ahead and put it on the Aphelios to get our rage blade stack in a little bit quicker, especially since we only have the second ranger to go along. So when that ranger, proc goes down, then the rage blade is going to compensate for that. We're not even going to lose any attack speed.
Yeah, and I wonder how much Jax that we mentioned that we're going to see, because something that generally happens is when some 4-cost carries are nerfed, people are like, all right, okay, let's see the ones that aren't nerfed, and let's just run those, right? But skirmishers just haven't really been on the forefront of a lot of people's, I guess, priority lists when it comes to the set, but perhaps we'll end up seeing it. A 5th Nightbringer goes in, Morgana, she gets the GA, maybe her stuns will be effective, but that Vel'Koz in the back from Duskglade gonna be outputting a lot of damage, gets more to half HP, but now he's equipped with the Hand of Justice, right? He's gonna be healing himself on every single auto attack for so much.
Also, that Kindred ult, MVP. That little bit of extra time for that Aphelios just to not have to worry about falling in that situation was all that they needed. The Kale, we haven't even talked about just yet, transforms every 5 seconds at both Tier 1 and Tier 2. And Sphinx is going to finish in the top 5. And this is actually a pretty great way of solidifying your spot in the top 3, which is finish in the top 4 in your first lobby, right?
Yeah.
So we have the ability to potentially get that Tier 2 Kindred, and we're going to just put 2 of them in there on the same side just in case, right? It's all about that protection and that utility. Utility's so strong in this particular set just in general.
Definitely. You might as well, because what else are you going to run right now? Another Nightbringer, but it's not going to get you to that 6th Nightbringer trait threshold. So I think 2 Kindreds is the correct play from Sphinx, but facing up against Ueckar with the Aphelios 2 versus Aphelios 2, but the Hellion board, though, as well, complementing it.
Yeah, the Hellion board is one that I think we could have expected to be here at this point in time, just not this version of it, which is hilarious. So we've got size apparently does matter, as this Aphelios is going to take down the little junior Aphelios, baby Affy. If you will, or Alfred. What would Aphelios's just like regular person name be? You know how I would call Shyvana Shannon?
Yeah.
Right. What would Aphelios be? It would be like Alfred or something.
Yeah, I was gonna say like Arthur, Alfred, something like that.
Chat. I'm always open to suggestions here. But yeah, we're gonna come up to our Dragon round, and this is an item that's gone through a lot of change. Gargoyle Stone Plate, not absolute trash. Like it was before. Do you want to go over some of the changes to some of the bad items that might find themselves some play here?
Yeah, definitely. Instead of just providing some flat resistances, instead the Gargoyle Stone Plate will give those resistances, I believe it's 18 armor and MR for each enemy targeting them. So if you're solo frontline, you have 5, 6, 7 enemies targeting you, it's gonna be a lot of tankiness there. So I think that's a very healthy change for the item and makes it easier to play around, get value out of, and have value not only in the early game, but also late game as well, because there's going to be more units targeting you, so you get those more resistances.
Whew, resistances are the name of the game right now, with Ironclad, Knight, Mystic all in the set right now, and we're gonna be doing a little bit more splashing around. It's a pool party, right? We've got God Kings, we've got Forgottens, we've got Legionnaires, we got a little bit of everything, and this is kind of where I think a lot of comps end up being or looking like by the end of the game, because people are making small adjustments as we go on through the lobbies to counter specific players. And the fact that we're at 28 HP or lower right now means that every decision becomes even more impactful than the last. And I always have to remind friends at home, the longer you take on your first decision, the less time you have on every subsequent decision after that. So make sure you're weighing your time appropriately. There's a lot to think about.
Exactly, there is. Marcel, thinking about a lot of small synergies, has 3 Forgotten to buff the Draven, but only 2 Legionnaire, 2 Dragonslayer for the Mord, so his auto attacks are coming very slowly, and with that, Marcel taking a big hit, the HP advantage that he had gained during the beginning of the game might not end up mattering, but INTC actually will fall, our champion from 2 weeks ago, so barely makes his way into the top 4. But yeah, 2 players, single-digit HP, Sphinx on 10 HP, but on a win streak, though. But this game could be over in just a couple rounds, Boop.
Yeah, not a lot of these games actually make it to, at least the ones that I've experienced and watched, not a lot of people making it to 9 and round 7. It takes a little longer to get there, as you're spending a lot more money on units since you're not getting 3 free ones for your Chosens and stuff. But yeah, we're going to Nico's the Viego, get some better items. We're not going to help with the Chalice, but that Rabadon's is going to be, you know, that straw's going to go in, it's going to suck right out.
Yeah,
you know, like at the end of a milkshake.
The Kindred gets stolen. Yeah, Viego's onto his second target, perhaps. Gonna find another one, and the Diana finds her way to the Aphelios. Ueckar will go down. We'll see if Sphinx is able to hang on as well. Versus
I love
Chewy.
this Sphinx comp. I mean, Legionnaire is not the most exciting thing in the world, but it is consistent.
Yeah, it's a well-crafted comp.
It is. We're gonna lose though, because of Kale and late game. But that's just what happens, right? Sphinx gets third place after being in last almost the entirety of
that's
this
pretty good.
lobby. But that goes to show how strong some of these later game units can be in terms of not just power level, but filling out these comps with a little CC here, a little healing here. We got AoE here. We've got debuffs on the Darius. We've got steals on the Viego. Plus, you got a position for the Draven along with the Diana, right? There's so much to think about. And sometimes when you have just really tanky comps, you just don't have to think about as much. Right? You just put your knights out there, just cross your fingers and hope, and get that CC off. But yeah, this Darius is going to be pretty important in this particular matchup because of the armor shred on that ultimate that we are going to get off after this Rel CC. The game is really going to be on for Marcel to try to start winning this game of attrition, because eventually that Kale is going to start popping off.
Yeah, definitely. As the more time goes by, Kale ascends and the Rage Blade stacks up. Mordekaiser still going to be near full HP, though gets the shield off, but isn't targeting the kill right now. Kale invulns, Marcel will fall, and Chewy will be the winner of game number 1. Wow, a Kale board winning it. That's actually not something that I really expected, but it makes sense with the B patch coming in and nerfing some of these 4-cost carries, like Aphelios, like Mordekaiser. Kale being that 5-cost carry is really rising up, you know, amongst the Heimerdingers and Timos and things of the like, and we saw the power of it right there.
You know, as Fiora is the 1 cost of TFT players' memories, Kale is the 5 cost. I think this is, I don't think Kale's been anything lower than a 3. I think there's that one time she was a 3 cost in like set 2 or something like that. But she was a 5 cost in set 1, a 5 cost another time, and now is a 5 cost here. And TFT players love Kale, always will. It's auto attack based. Anyone who liked Ashe from back in the day is gonna like the Kale here, and the items just make sense, right? Our previous iterations of Kale, remember, it was like Jewel Gauntlet or this or this or this. This one's like Rage Blade and whatever you want, right? Because you just need the Rage Blade to pump out that damage. As we look at the scores, and it's funny because when Kale was good, no one ever won with Kale here on Fight Night, and Kale's just starting to be good now. We actually have Kale win the lobby, so things are already way different than last set.
I know, right? Absolutely loving it, and loving the scores coming through, especially from Chewy. You know, Marcel, Sphinx, and Ueckar are top 4. INTC, though, the champion of last, or 2 weeks ago, excuse me, last Fight Night, the last one on set 4.5, has some work to do in terms of catching up. We still have 3 more games to go, so it still is anyone's game. The players who do start off strong usually follow up with a good, strong performance in game number 2, however, though.
I'm just excited to see what else we're going to see, right? We actually saw quite a bit of diversity there, a lot of choice. We did see Aphelios and Mordekaiser, I think, just as much as we would have seen them before the patch, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people falling off. The only thing that really people just got rid of was LeBlanc. That was the one thing that we didn't really see, but everything that got nerfed, we actually saw find some semblance of success in these lobbies. So again, just because it's nerfed doesn't mean stop playing it. It might actually be the best time to start playing that specific comp, as people hear nerf and they just stop playing it, and it's just going to be less contested.
That's so true, actually. People just gravitate away from it all of a sudden, and you know, you're just there being like, okay, maybe I can even hit like a 3-star Mordekaiser or Aphelios, something like that, and then you're going to be able to win lobbies with things like that.
I'm going to bring up an example of this that happened at the end of last set, which was Ramkev, right? North America's hope. At Worlds, and
Ramkev, 3rd place.
Ramkev won his qualifier off of a Talon 3, because no one was playing Talon, right? So they just picked up the Talons and Morganas and ended up getting second once with Talon and then won a lobby with it. So same kind of thing here. So plus there's so much more expression and choice involved that I know a lot of people will trade their carries, you know, sometimes. Like the Kale doesn't work 2 times, so they just try someone else. And they never establish themselves. They always have, you know, the skeleton, but none of the meat. And I think that's what players are still kind of deciding right now. What does the meat look like for these comps? Is this the right Mystic? Should I put Lux or, you know, am I going to put Lux or Lulu in this time around? They're both 3 cost, right? Or both. What choices are we going to make small decisions that create big results later? Again, we're going to be really looking into those choices in this next lobby.
Definitely, and just a quick update on that next lobby. I think one player had to restart the computer, maybe had some issues, but we'll be getting them back in and getting into game number 2 shortly. But it gives us some time to talk about this set, because there is so much to talk about, right, Boop? And I love that you just have examples in your brain as well, from like the Ramkev example of those 3-star,
That's my
4-cost
man.
carries. It really is. So
yeah.
I'm glad you're able to bring that here to the broadcast. But that's actually like so true, right? The units that people ignore are going to be the ones that you can look at to kind of cement yourself as the off-meta player, but with an impact, right? I guess
Right.
you can kind of, you know, like brand yourself like that, but it really, with the set 5 being so new, there's still a lot of experimentation left to go. We're going to continue to see new compositions like every single day, right? Until the meta gets, I suppose we'll say, solved, right? That's generally a term that a lot of TFT players will use, but it's going to take a lot longer to get to a point where the meta is solved. It's because there's so much more to go through and process and learn, right? Players having to do that just with the, you know, the change that happened yesterday. And we talk about, or you were talking about, the boards that aren't necessarily shied away from, like the Mordekaiser, the Aphelios that's still there, but even other things, right? The Ziggs attack speed being nerfed by 0.10. People are still running the Shiv Ziggs. They're still running the Ivern and Volibear kind of like dual front lines.
Yep.
Yeah, the Revenants. And the Revenants healing on the Resurrection, they got nerfed a lot, right? It went from 30% at 2 Revenants to 10%, and at 3 it went from 75% to 40%.
Both Ivern and Volibear got nerfed, right? So
exactly, yeah.
And
Volibear mana is just, yeah, good luck getting 2 casts off.
So this is one of your quintessential Booposaurus metaphors upcoming. So I feel like when things get nerfed, right? You know, there's 2 ways to win student council precedent. Okay? Number 1 is just to be popular. Right? that is one way of doing it. There's no doubt about it. The second one is the one you see in all your coming of age movies, right? We got to get the coalition of the nerds. You know, the goths, you know, the
underrepresented groups.
Yeah,
right?
and then put them all together and then you can win. And I feel like that's what it feels like sometimes when you're picking up nerfed champions in TFT, right? But you know, you put the right group together and it's totally gonna work. And so don't ever avoid it just because they might be unpopular, might have a not as good lunch table as you. You know,
exactly.
I don't know if Aphelios really appreciates the fact that he's sitting by the bathroom right now.
No, and other units, right, as well, that are getting ignored. I think we saw an example of competition yesterday with having a Renewer composition, but re-rolling for Lissandra and Vladimir 3. Like, that I thought was, like, so cool to see. You put, like, Blue Buff, Jewel Gauntlet, maybe a Hextech Gunblade on Lissandra, and she can still scale very well into the late game. But then we also have these real niche things, like, I mean, we saw last game making, like, a Hellion Aphelios, but you can also make like a Dragon Slayer like carry. I think we saw like Dragon Slayer Viego or something like that. It was real interesting, and there's so many options that you can go. We're going to see compositions that it's just gonna pop into our head like, oh, that's so cool, like I hadn't thought of that before, but it's gonna work out in some scenarios, and I think that's just so neat.
Set 5 is, I think, can really be boiled down to options versus context, right? You're always going to have options, but you're going to have to utilize the amount of context that you can use, right? I'm going to have a lot less context and information than most of the players playing today because, you know, they can scout literally one time and remember every single thing that they see. And when I believe Wolfie posted this yesterday about Aphantasia, I've never been able to imagine anything. Right? If you were to tell me to imagine a red tomato when my eyes were closed, I'd just see blackness, right? And so when people are able to just scout and just remember and have that visual to them the entire time, right, they're going to have more context to make decisions off of. And when you have that context, those decisions are going to be made more confidently, more intentionally, and cleanly, right? But the whole point, I think, of this set was to kind of muddle the waters in that exact situation is, hey, let's actually give you some bad choices, right? That might seem good right now and see how you deal with it, right? Let's
Yeah.
give you the shadow item that's going to be, really good on your vein, but when you go off of this vein and maybe, go stronger into another type of unit, this, RFC that you built, the shadow RFC that you built, this might not matter
Exactly.
anymore.
Yeah. There's so many options. I believe the game is ready, so we're going to jump on into game number 2 in just a moment. No further delays. We see the carousel starting on board with Ueckar. Ends up grabbing a vest. Very interesting. I think generally a lot of players will gravitate towards. I mean, I guess there's so many options, right? But I think the top like 5, I guess, are going to be tier, rod, glove, sword, and then belt. Do you feel differently at all about that, or the others that like are on
No,
your mind?
I like. It depends on what your preferences are, right? You've got your
Yeah.
spicy assassin players that are going to start sword, right? Then you've
Yep.
got your, slow and consistent knight players to start. I think just so many of the really good early game options require HP, right? Because you can get a belt, and whatever this belt goes with is probably going to be good on a knight, right?
Yeah.
If it's a tier, if it's another vest, if it's another belt, even. And so the options, the defensive options, are actually being utilized in this set, and that's one of the coolest aspects of set 5 so far. So if you like tankiness, if you like winning by attrition, this is a really good set for you to play. And especially if some other units get buffed again, like Hecarim or or
Yeah.
anything like that. The Gragas could be that example. But yeah, like if you're starting off on the carousel with a vest, there's just so much that you can either get like 50% value off or complete value off of that item. So it's pretty good. And you can say that, I think, for the items that you listed off.
Definitely. There's going to be a couple options that Ueckar can go from here. There's the potential of 3 Forgotten, or just the Dawnbringer Assassin that we see on the board right now. Gets a bit of gold, so we're going to be able to buy everything in the shop. More Forgottens even. The Thresh and Hecarim already at potentially 5 Forgottens. Forgotten is a very interesting comp, Boop. It's one that hasn't had a lot of success yet in set 5, at least in North America. I think there's some European players, and now I think it's just starting to come to NA in the past couple of days of like Draven boards with Forgotten working out. But Forgotten not going to be the direction of choice for Ueckar, at least right now. Going to sell the Veins off, just put the Warwick in for a couple of brawlers. But Katarina is a fantastic early game unit. Yeah, she does so much damage early.
Also, I think one of the most creative units the TFT team has ever made.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
In the way that she works, right? We haven't really had someone like jump around like that as consistently as she is, because even old versions of Katarina were just spin to win, right?
Yep.
But you get like the whole character. This Katarina plays a lot more like Summoner's Rift Katarina does,
Yeah.
and I appreciate that design choice. I really do. I think that is hard to mimic, especially on assassins, and that kind of jumping around cool atmosphere. And I think the fantasy of Katarina shows really well here, and so many good item carrying options. You can have the Hextech Gunblade, any type of attack damage, another kind of item agnostic unit a la Yasuo, who is another 3-cost unit that can use both AP and AD, because Katarina is auto attacking quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I was distracted by the shop because there's 3 Draconics just right there. There's the Ashe, the Set, and a pair of Udyrs. And we already have a Rageblade, which is one of the best in slot Ashe items. Like that'd be so tempting. Okay, yeah, actually gonna recognize it and go with it. I love this direction of that pivot, because while Katarina is still very fantastic, that board could have very well carried you through the early game, this is gonna set you up a lot better to scale, right? Draconic is going to be kind of that more consistent fortune that we know from set 4, a lot less volatile. You can still win streak with it, still have a strong board, and just get more money, right, over time in terms of units and just
fascinating how Draconic works and how it pushes your thinking, because Draconic isn't necessarily about fortune, which is cashing out, right? Draconic is about utilizing your bench space the best that you can, right? The only other time we've ever had to think about bench space like that is Meeps, from back
Yeah,
from
true.
Bard, from Galaxies. So something that will consistently happen is you'll get a bunch of units that you just don't need, right? Are you gonna try to 3-star all of them? Maybe. Right? It depends on what these eggs give you.
Yep.
This small egg will only give you 1-cost unit, so that's going to be a new deer or maybe a set, I believe, can come in those. And as
Yeah, I
they get
believe so.
bigger, they take longer to hatch, and more rare units come out of it. You can't get Heimerdinger, for example, at level 6, but you can get a Heimerdinger once you do get 5 Draconics, which gives you the golden eggs, which are more like fortune payouts.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting how that works, because it forces you to play a weak board, right? But also gives you a ton of options to go into, because Draconic can go into Rangers, can go into Skirmishers, which can then help with Ironclad and stuff like that. But you also have the Rageblade on the Ash, and that's what's hard. Same thing with Fortune, right? It wasn't about getting into Fortune, it was about how long you played it and when you got out. And that's going to be the testament to who plays this well.
Exactly. Ueckar playing this very well right now. Another Ash with a bow on this carousel. It probably won't last until last pick yet. It actually gets picked up first by Killjoy there, unfortunately. But still, this is a very strong start. Generally, this composition, like you mentioned, does want to get to the 3-star Ash and 3-star Zyra. If we keep Draconics in the whole time, you can drop a set and Udyr later on and still just run 3 Draconics, or even just 2. You can sell off the Zyra once you've already got enough Draconic value, run like a Heimerdinger 2, run an Ash 3. But Ash is going to be a large carry in terms of damage that she can deal. Orb comes through, yeah, it's a set, so nothing too crazy.
And I'm just gonna belabor or pontificate a little bit more on this bench space. So
Yeah.
it might not seem like it's a big deal right now, but sometimes you play Draconic and you've got 4 eggs that all hatch at the same time, right? And then you all of a sudden have to, just like Fortune, just push through your round faster than you normally would. And it gets even harder at Draconic 5. We'll definitely check back in when we get there a little bit closer. But we have the Rageblade on the Ziggs, something I thought was more on the spicier side, but I think finds a little bit more value now that he doesn't have such natural attack speed.
Yeah, not that much at least. Still very high. Actually gets double thresh hooked towards like the middle of the board and then taken out very quickly. Sphinx running a strong board there with the Rageblade. There's a few players running Rageblade, and to no surprise, right? You talked about it earlier, Rageblade is such a flexible, good item. Less so in last set, but there's just so many items that find so many different uses, right? You talked about Bloodthirster basically wasn't an item last set, Static Shiv, but there's almost no item right now that I feel like gets no value. Like, it's hard for me to at least think of one off the top of my head. Sure, there's ones that you don't want to build in the early game, like early game Quicksilver is not great, early game like Shroud, but towards the late game, like there's gonna find a scenario where you can get value out of literally any single item.
Dude, literally the game I played before coming on today, I picked my 3rd Kindred up on the Carousel, and it was like, oh no, my other Kindred has an item on it. I did make the Shadow Shroud, so
that's very awkward.
And so my Kindred would mana reave itself. It's like I wanted to lose. I got 8th. But yeah, don't do that, friends. Let me be the experiment. You know what I mean? I want to make the mistakes for y'all so you don't make them on the ladder. That's why I go to the lab every day when I play. And that's the other really fun thing about this particular set is you can try a bunch of stuff and get top 4. I think the winning comps are a little bit more consistent, but you can sneak into the top 4 with a lot of different stuff.
Totally agree with that, and a lot of different items can carry you there. Speaking of that, wanted to go over INTC's, Shadow Hand of Justice that they've built. It's very awkward because it does give you both of the effects of Hand of Justice, right? You get the healing and the extra attack damage ability power, but after you get one takedown, they go away. But after you get another takedown, they come back, and it continues kind of like that. It goes in and out, in and out. But if you're like stuck on when you get neither of the bonuses, it's pretty much a dead item. But gonna have to circumvent that one. Generally, units that use that more effectively are things that like AoE, like I guess like Aphelios can, Vel'Koz can. Takes down one unit, it's gonna get some healing ticks like guaranteed. So, gonna see where that ends up later on. But for now, INTC will just get a lot of gold.
You know what's actually really interesting? I haven't seen any of the 2 gold Nico starts.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen that either. That's a dreaded start. Ask anybody.
You think it's good? It's like one of those things where like the outside of it looks good to me, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, Nico's, and then you bite into it and it's literal garbage. On the inside, like, and it's like, or like when you drink milk and you don't realize it's spoiled,
Yeah.
right? Because it feels like it would be good, but I mean, like, you just get so much more value out of earlier game units now, and it's so much harder to get to your 3-star units because you're not starting with 3 automatically with your chosen, so you're just waiting
Mm-hmm.
really long time to
Exactly.
use that Nico anyway,
Yeah.
right? So most of the time those Nicos stay on the bench for most of the game that you started it with. So that's why a lot of people don't like it there. Is there any other reason why it's so disdained in the community?
Econ. 2 gold is less than 5 or 6 gold, and that gold makes it a lot harder to level up and have as much money as the other players in the lobby. Sure, you can find a 2 cost or 3 cost unit Nico and sell it as the argument that famously Mortdog has made in the past, but players are like, no, that's just not what you do with the Nicos there, and even if you do, you're still going to be at least 1 or 2 gold behind, and you're just playing the game from a disadvantage, unfortunately. At least a lot of players feel like it.
I think it's so funny that the creator of the game was like, do this, and everyone was like, no.
Yeah, it's like, nah. I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like if like Santa Claus was like, be good this year, and you were like, I know you're Santa, but no.
Yeah, it's like,
I'm gonna do what I
don't think
want.
so. Yeah.
Yeah. As we are gonna move into Forgottens for INTC. I think one of the best Forgotten units is that Thresh. The ult is a Zephyr, pretty much.
Kinda.
Yeah, and it can be really frustrating, but I think positioning against the Thresh can be a little bit easier than you would want. No Bloodthirster on the Draven, but we do have the Hodge, which will always have that lifesteal every other kill.
Yep. Draven, for Forgotten on board INTC, has the 5th one on the bench. Needs like a Vayne or a Rise or perhaps a Viego to get the 6th Forgotten online. But Draven is a carry that is very, very interesting. He does a lot of damage. A lot of players are starting to figure out how to itemize him, and it's generally going to be Last Whisper and Infinity Edge, so he can one-shot even like the tanky frontliners, and players are running, like things like Ironclad to chew through a lot of that armor. But not going to be Last Whisper for INTC, but still, Draven's very strong right now on 3-2.
So all of the auto attack based champs require ramp up, right? Even down to Jax, who has it internally in their ultimate. But how they ramp up is really important. Aphelios, for example, ramps up and gets AoE damage. Kale will do the same thing. Draven, however, does not get that. Will always be single target. So might actually take a little bit longer than some other carries to chew through it, but you are going to get more valuable single target damage, which is not super valuable because of all the Knights and Ironclads and Mystics and stuff that you see. There's just a lot to defend against Draven with. There's a lot of tools to defend against Draven in terms of positioning. He can get stuck on a tank, for example, and there's such good tank items in the game. But enough about Draven and more about this Legionnaire comp once again coming in from Sphinx.
Yeah, this doesn't have to be Legionnaire comp in the late game, but of course it is right now. We have the Callista carry holding the Rageblade, extra bow. They're flexible items. The Gargoyle stun plate on the Aatrox can go kind of anywhere later on. Same with the Rageblade. Sphinx does have Nico's help on the bench as well. Wants to sell up to 20 or to 30 gold, excuse me. Sphinx is a little behind in gold. Generally on 3-2 you want to have 30, not 3-3 going to Carousel. But Sphinx is holding on to HP, and that's going to be the key thing. You can use HP as a resource to catch up on gold later on. There's some interesting units going to be on this carousel as well. Aphelios with a glove comes to mind if players are going to just be going for the unit, and the INTC grabs it. See what other players end up with. Sphinx has, I believe, a spare rod and spare bow. Could grab the cloak for a Runeans. Duskglade looks like they want the cloak, though.
Yeah, spare bow, spare rod, and some spare change in that economy. And we're in a much better position than we were last time around. And Sphinx has transitioned into a little bit more of a late game player than in the past. One of the most consistent players you'll find in TFT, I believe, is in the top 3 for weeks in a row for Fight Night. On that record, which I believe is like 6 or 7 in a row. And so we're at 3-5 now. It looks like Sphinx may have started with that Nico's start, that Nico's 2 gold.
Yeah,
as we
maybe.
have one on the board. ZZ Rot will be next up. And it's way more, it's easier to invest that bow into that ZZ Rot because you might just get a bow in the armory, for example. So you're going to see a lot more ZZ Rots. There's, one on the other side, yes, because of Thieves' Clubs, but this might end up being a beetle battle.
Yeah.
By the end of the round.
Beetle battle. I haven't heard that one before, but it's very much what it's going to be. However, the beetle of Sphinx does fall a lot earlier. The thresh hooks come through, and Draven's going to be a lot stronger than the Callista.
Yep, just one hit, and you're going to quit with that axe, right? You get an axe tossed in the face, it crits, you're out. Right, you're just gonna have to go for the next round. But that's Draven for you, and that's the whole point, right? Like if Draven starts getting into your backline, you've probably lost, right? You have to just keep them from getting there, and there are plenty of ways of doing it. As we have another Draven coming online, this time for Sphinx. Do you double rage? Sorry.
No, definitely not. Avoid at all costs.
I wanted
Draven
to
will attack very fast but do no damage.
Death by 1,000 paper cuts is a strategy, okay?
How much time do you need for that one, though? That's going to be the question.
He already takes forever to win a round.
Yeah.
It's the draw strategy, I guess, for Draven. He does have a little bit of internal lifesteal, by the way, if you're curious as to why there's no Bloodthirster or anything, but there is lifesteal. And we actually have our first Nidalee with the completed item right now. And this unit, in the mid game, one of the few mid game, truly mid game units in set 5, so strong, especially with IE and Bloodthirster.
Definitely. And yeah, I want to expand upon what you were alluding to with Draven having a bit of built-in lifesteal. And it's going to come through with the Legionnaire trait. Actually, I kind of forgotten about that one, but great that you bring it up. When Legionnaires cast their ability, they're going to be able to heal up a little bit after, I believe, 50% of the damage that they deal from their ability cast. So Draven benefiting from that. Doesn't need necessarily a Bloodthirst or anything of the sort. And with already 3 bows, it's no wonder that Sphinx did choose to use one of those bows to make a ZZ Rot. Going to be a fantastic frontline item. Buy more time for the Draven to actually get to the backline, right? And unfortunately, we're not seeing fantastic items. We did have a glove come through, which is nice. We can get the Last Whisper, but really want to pair that with an IE optimally. More Legionnaires being found. Just need one more to come through. Mordekaiser being a main one.
Again, friends, the fact that Sphinx even hovered over that, we're all Sphinx is in Masters.
Yeah.
Right? So
we're still
don't
learning.
feel that. Yeah, if you need to hover over, you are not winning a competition by memorizing all of this the fastest. Right? So just use what's in the game to help you out. As we have 6 Legionnaires on the board, and that's going to be a lot of attack speed based. So that Rage Blade is going to start ramping up much faster, which is going to help you cut through that front line. But you're seeing how little damage this Gragas has taken at first, and just imagine if there was another tank and a better backliner, how much different that would have gone. Not a ton of damage on that Draven, a lot of attack speed, pretty much just throwing spitballs.
That Mord
with
one,
that
Mord one with the 0 items did more damage than the Draven.
Sick.
Yep.
Legionnaires.
Sword coming through, fortunately, for that board. But moving over to Marcel P, yet another Draven gamer. I feel like that's the trend today we're seeing. But we'll see how far it does take us.
Why do you think Draven is so satisfying to play? Why are people so attracted to this type of unit in this game, right? The Ashes, the Dravens, the Kales. What do you think is so attractive when it comes to these auto attack based units versus someone who might be preferencing the Mordekaiser?
Yeah, a couple answers here, and I mean you can take with these what you will, but Draven, I think a little bit of nostalgia from set 1. He's just going to be that solid carry that you can put just these massive AD items and Draven goes smack, right? He heads the front line, tears through it, goes to the back line. He's consistent. You know what he's going to do. You know what he offers. And that's appealing when it comes to being able to assess your board strength versus other players. The other answer there is seeing, Noob Owl going a 7 win streak this weekend in Twitch Rivals and playing Draven for a lot of those games. Maybe 2 or 3 of the games, but still, definitely Noob Owl, one of the players that made Draven look super, super good. So I think a combination of a little of those two, probably some more as well.
Yeah, and one of these days we'll get that mustache synergy. There's enough. I think it should be like ironclad, right? But just be beards instead of actual iron. There's enough. There's enough.
Thinking mustaches, think of like Draven and like Braum, but who else?
Gangplank, Olaf, Tryndamere. Tryndamere? Anyway,
I don't know.
Does Tryndamere have facial hair?
I have no
can't
idea.
remember. I just told you I can't visualize things. Yeah, Gragas is definitely up there. Aphantasia, by the way, friends, is what I figured out I have. If you want to look it up, it's the essential oils of WebMD. Not sure it's real, but I like saying it is. So now, as we get back onto this wonderful playing board, by the way, interactables on all of the new boards, and they added interactables to some of the other paid boards from the past, just FYI, if you guys didn't know that. So if you really liked the club board on Spirits or Fates, then there's actually interactables on that now.
Neat.
Yeah.
Today I learned, actually.
Oh, man, when I found out that you could make things slide off of that slide, I legitimately lost it. I lost it. There was nothing left happening. As we have El Tomo now, who, interestingly enough, takes a ton of notes while he plays.
Yeah.
It's not really something that we see. It's pretty common in card games, right? Particularly Hearthstone. You can like print off someone's deck and then cross off the cards that they use and cross off the cards that you've used. But yeah, this is probably a little bit of like a self-soothing thing to have the pen in your hand. Same thing as twirling your hair or biting your lip. But El Tomo played a wonderful fourth lobby last week to get here. Was really clean on it, was really quiet the rest of the day, didn't really make a ton of crazy spicy moves, right? Because that's the thing, if you play a spicy comp, we're going to watch and you're going to get that airtime, right? But sometimes when you're flying under the radar and you find that success, we find you, at the end, and we got to ride along with El Tomo, I think, for almost the entirety of that last lobby, and it was pretty much perfect. Not a ton of mistakes, and a lot of confidence and intention. And I don't know if that's because we're taking notes, right? Maybe that's helping us with our intent, but in terms of making decisions, I think El Tomo is really good at being intentional and making them a little bit quicker than some of the other players in the lobby.
Yeah. I know when it comes to note-taking in TFT, something that some players will do if they don't use like the third-party program is to take note of what matchups they, like who they played against and what 3 players that they can play against during the next round, because in TFT, you know your next 3 matchups, or at least you know what your next matchup can be out of 3 exact players, so you don't have to scout every single one. As opposed to just being able to narrow it down.
Do you want to go ahead and just kind of explain that? We're at the beginning of a set, so I think it would be appropriate because it's, especially since positioning is so important in this particular set.
Yeah, sure. So you cannot play against the last 4 players that you have fought. That does change when someone actually gets eliminated and dies, but for the majority of the game throughout the end of stage 2, throughout into stage 5 usually, you're going to be able to know exactly which 3 people you play, because they're the 3 people that you have played. I guess there's not the last 4 people that you've played, basically. So you can narrow it down that way. Simple as that, really.
Cool. Yeah, and then so you scout out that possible pool of people and then position that way. So you're not positioning for 8 people every round. You never are. Other than the first 3 rounds, technically.
Yeah.
And so, the other thing that I think is so funny, that literally yesterday I told someone, Soraka does not heal. Soraka. I know a lot of people who just started playing this game, and I think they see the Dawnbreaker trait and think that maybe Soraka is doing that because Soraka is Soraka, right? But you probably aren't experiencing it, but a lot of my friends, including myself, just assumed that Soraka healed at the beginning of the set. So read the abilities, friends. Read the abilities, especially in this set. You're not going to passively learn a ton. I think in set 5, you're going to have to actively search through things and make sure, if you're really trying to learn this set, read all the origins, read all the of the classes, and read all the ability names.
Disappointing you, Boop. Assuming Soraka is a healer just because she's a support and a Dawnbringer and a Renewer. I mean, she does a little of inherent healing with her traits, of course, but not going to be casting any heals on her allies. No, no, no. El Tomo, though, making his way to level 9, it looks like it will potentially, but it's just off the back of a solid Lissandra carry board, and only at tier 2, but look how much damage Lissandra is doing, right? The crits coming through a double jeweled gauntlet, 7,000
Oh,
damage there, like, that's so nuts.
yeah, 1,300 damage on one spell cast. So the way that Double Jewel Gauntlet works, friends, is it increases the damage twofold. Everything in this is a weird sentence, but everything in
Ooh.
TFT stacks unless it doesn't. But
Unless it doesn't,
what I
true.
mean by that is there are 4 items that specifically don't stack on units. I'm counting all of the spats on there, but like Sunfire Cape is the other one. Is we have the option of picking up a Diana here.
Yeah, but we have to sell the Kennen pair and the Trundle pair. This is a weird spot to be in. I think a lot of players would have locked in that scenario just because actually the Kennen pair is really valuable, but we're still on just a Jax 1 right now and don't even have the Shadow QSS, the Caustic Quicksilver that some people think is really necessary on him. Getting CC'd, not being able to ramp up and get CC'd once, right, twice the Diana pull and just taken out so quickly afterwards by INTC's Draven. That's a bit unfortunate. Really needs to find that Jack sooner. This is looking like a bot for sure for Duskglade.
You know, and that's unfortunate because when you know that you're in this position, sometimes you actually start doing what I call a self-fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah.
Which is you
Oh,
stop
there it is.
looking you stop looking for winning opportunities, right? Because you've assumed that you've already lost, but that's not the case here because when you have no gold, you have to stop anyway. Um, so we're gonna see if we're gonna. Yep, we're putting in Viego. We have a skirmisher comp. Khroen, by the way, so this is
Yep.
something that we don't normally see, especially with the Darius in the front line being that skirmisher, which is actually really cool. They're gonna get 5 attack damage, 3 attack damage every time they attack, and they already have a buff after they ult, and it's just gonna be even more. And that ult gives you lifesteal for the next 3 auto attacks after that. So it ends up
Yeah, I believe it's
actually working out
6.
in their favor right there.
Definitely. The Jax 2, huge. The Viego pickup steals the Lux away. Jax is still alive. Going to be able to take down Ueckar in that round. Ueckar does not fall, fortunately for them, but still dropping a single-digit HP means that, of course, the next loss will be lethal. Killjoy goes out in 8th. El Tomo, the 8th player in the last game, dodges it this time and is top 4 at least for now. But skirmisher board's very interesting. And yeah, I think you referenced the amount of damage they get. I think it's 6 damage per second. 6 attack damage at 6 skirmishers, so definitely scales up, and all those skirmishers allows them to do a lot more damage over the course of the whole fight. Now, blue buff picked up, probably going to go onto the Viego to allow him to get a lot more cast off, steal more units. It's actually really surprising. You talk about like, oh yeah, I thought like Soraka, might like heal, but I'm like, it doesn't seem like Viego is a skirmisher in my mind. It's like, okay, he's an assassin of Forgotten,
Totally, I
but
get that.
he's a skirmisher. Like, okay, sick. I
he
don't know
he
why,
legit,
but
he
cool.
legitimately like barely even auto attacks.
Yeah.
He's more of a mage, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
really.
But like there are a couple of those kinds of
Oh,
units
huge.
here because Kennen is a little bit of a mage as well. But the true skirmishers are Jax and Pantheon. I feel like are the ones that like make
Yeah.
the most
Maybe
sense
like
to me.
Trundle, kinda, I
Yeah,
suppose.
kinda.
Nidalee, like maybe.
But we have one of my favorite Diana items on here, which is your leftover tier and your leftover chain vest turning
Oh
into
yeah. It's so
frozen heart
good.
for an assassin. It's always going to be good. It's one of those items that will get value, right? And it's not something that you're going to have to really worry about finding that value off of. Like Chewy's having a little bit of a hard time finding value off of their team comp right now. As Killjoy has already been eliminated. Ueckar, not Ueckar, is at 3 HP, INTC's at 5, everyone else pretty even. And this is par for the course when it comes to new sets, by the way. The lobbies are usually very, very close. In about 2 weeks, we'll probably have a little bit of a top-heavy lobby, but at least for these first upcoming weeks, these lobbies should be within 30 HP usually the whole time.
Yeah, they're close and they're generally faster as well, right? We don't have players like super greeting because they're going a bit aggressively to try to get their comps online. They can't really accurately say what's my board strength versus others, so oftentimes you will overspend gold at the beginning of sets. So definitely some players kind of falling into that line of thinking. The Viego gonna jump into the middle. Diana to the left side. We'll see if Oh no, the guess is wrong. Diana doesn't find any purchase here.
Oh, that's one of the best ults in the game, that Diana. So we actually move into a better position. We were probably always gonna be okay for this mid game fight, but it's gonna be up to getting that Viego.
Oh
And the
no.
hardest part about getting that Viego is the fact that it jumps into the back line, and by the time he takes a unit, no one's paying attention to him. Right, so he almost gets a second unit. Oh my goodness!
Aphelios, what? Yeah, question mark ping's coming out for sure. I would question mark ping that one. The mid Syndra slam, but Aphelios still gets the ulti off. Wow. Didn't know that occurred like that, so that's good to see.
I laughed like that, by the way, Fred.
No.
Morning. I should have warned you first. Also, I'm just going to vent for a second. This has nothing to do with TFT. I was testing myself for that aphantasia stuff, and they're like, okay, we'll teach you how to do it. Number 1, close your eyes. And it's like, then what do I do next? My eyes are closed. I can't read the instructions.
Well, you read the instructions first, and then you just go through the steps. You memorize the instructions just like you want to memorize something and picture it.
But that's literally what I'm trying to figure out if I can do or not, okay? And I can't figure it out because the first instructions always close your eyes. And it's like, why isn't that the third thing?
The first instruction should be read all the instructions before doing any of them, and then it should go through all of them.
Thank you.
Yeah, I feel you. I feel you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. God, I just, I used to be a teacher, and I have like a thing about tests being written hard for like no reason and just improper instructions, and that one got under my skin. Anyway, 17 HP for Duskglade. We've been riding along with Duskglade for a bit, and this has been a little bit of a run back. We have a Rage Blade too, which would have been awesome on that Jax, but it's going to be just as good on the Kennen. By the way, friends, the way that Kennen works is it doesn't automatically go to the furthest unit. It hits the first unit with the stun and then travels to the furthest unit from there. Yeah. And so there are some positioning games to go with Kennen. It usually just kind of works out. It's something that I've noticed with Kennen. But if you're finding inconsistency with that unit, that's probably why. As El Tomo is going to fall 1 unit. That was it.
Yeah, that was an unfortunate fight. Heimerdinger nearly got another cast off, and if so, El Tomo definitely would have survived at least, if not won the round. Unfortunately, Heimer went down to something. I don't even know what it was. There's some random crit. Maybe it was a Diana spell. I'm not actually 100% sure, but I have to say goodbye to El Tomo in this lobby, the second lobby that they have bottom forward in after making it back to this week. Set 5 not going their way for now. INTC, though, trying to scrape together a top 4, but the HPs are so close, as you mentioned, Boop. 3 players within 1 HP of each other.
Yeah, Khroen. And honestly, Marcel in first place isn't that far ahead at 16, right? That's only 1 win, really. 1.5, depending on if you get spanked or not.
True. Mordecai's are trying to spank the Jax, and does. Draven's still alive. Sphinx wins that round, puts Duskglade into lethal range. INTC hangs on yet again as well. Chewy versus Marcel looks like is the other matchup. See how it goes momentarily. Once that check mark and X comes through, Chewy falls, but only to 1 unit, so is not eliminated.
Okay, things are getting too spicy for the pepper right now. If anyone got that reference, please tell me in the chat. We're only through game 2. I feel like we've just talked about so much.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about.
Yeah, because it's so exciting. We only get a new set. We only get to do this one time, right? We only get to cast a new set for the first time once, and it's just so exciting to see that all of the assumptions about this set have started to ring true. When it comes to diversity, the skill expression, the ceiling, like all the pros are really enjoying themselves. On Twitter. Of course, you have people complaining about Ironclad and stuff like that.
You'll always have people complaining. That's a TFT constant, though.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're a TFT streamer and you're not raging at least for 10% of your stream, are you really streaming TFT?
Yeah, I don't think so.
There's this game just like
close fight.
Yeah, it gives you this weird anger sometimes. I think we've all experienced it. And then we leave the thing and we're like, this is the worst game ever. I'm going to play immediately. I've just gotten 8th. I hate this game. Re-queue. Oh,
just rage queue it up.
Yeah,
you're tilted, exactly. And then you go 8th again, and then take a break if you're tilted. That's a PSA to.
The rule of thumb is 2 5ths or lower in a row means take a 10-minute break.
Yep.
Right? It's okay. Take a walk. 10 minutes isn't that long, right? And something that I have learned recently, someone that taught me, because I used to have a procrastination problem, which is if it takes 5 minutes, just do it now. right?
Ooh, yeah.
And that's been very helpful, as the ooh is going to be for this Lijonne and Dragon
The
Slayer.
Garen too.
Yeah, the Garen too, with a couple splashes. That Dragon Slayer splash is actually pretty fantastic for this comp.
Oh yeah, the Mordekaiser are going to benefit a lot from that. When he gets a kill, he's going to be giving himself AP and AP to the whole team, actually, so that everyone's benefiting from that. The repositioning comes through. That's going to be a Legionnaire Kindred in the backline. Diana finds her way there as well. The Garen going to shred all that MR, make Mordekaiser all that more deadly. The Kayla as well when she ascends. Sphinx has crafted a fantastic comp here, and it looks like it's good enough to take down Chewie and the Aphelios. And yeah, a couple more Mordekaiser smacks. And he will do it.
Oh, okay. All right. So the reason why you're actually seeing a lot of people build that tank version of the Mordekaiser is what you see just then. You need to have the beef, right, on the Mordekaiser in order to play Mordekaiser. There is no choice. You have to build a defensive, HP item on him. We have seen the shadow version of the Warmogs on the Mordekaiser, again, because there's that natural shield that happens every time they ult, and you're going to get value out of it. But QSS is also, in my opinion, required on Mordekaiser, because we've seen it already on some of these Dravens getting CC'd forever, right? And there's a lot of really good single target / like 2 target CC, like Nautilus, for example. And then when we get to the late game, some of the bigger CC happens, particularly the Volibear. So a lot of stuff can still happen in this game. This Garen is also part of the God Kings, and we actually haven't talked about it a lot. This is our first Garen. So Garen is going to have... Wait, don't Garen and Darius get advantages by facing each other?
Yeah, and there are other units, right? It's going to be Garen gets bonuses against like Nightbringers and vice versa for Darius against... Oh wow, Abigail, actually the game is over. Sphinx is gonna take it, it looks like. I ended it before I expected, really, because we were on the God King, but God King honestly kind of a fake trait. The God Kings aren't really gonna be like that. Okay, you get this God King, he's gonna be your carry, right? It's just a knight that does some cool stuff to synergize with other comps, right? Like the Nightbringer or Dawnbringer. And kind of like, synergize with the Aphelios really well on one side and synergize with like R or MR Shred on the other side. So they're just complementary units, really.
They're a little bit more like squires, I would say.
Kinda. God Kings are actually squires. Unfortunate for them. We have the scores ready from that last game, and see what happened with that double kill. It was actually Sphinx coming out on top. And from just from the last game, Duskglade with the skirmishers came in second, Marcel came in third, but overall from both of the games, Sphinx in the lead with 17 points, Chewie with 16, Marcel with 15, Duskglade in fourth with 11. Then we have 8, 4, 3 down the line there. 3 players top 4ing both games so far, Boop.
Yeah, and honestly, 2 of them are no surprise at all, to be completely honest with you. The biggest, I think, outlier here is Duskglade, right? That's why you're sitting at 4th place. Polarizing results, but with Sphinx, Chewie, and Marcel separating themselves, this is probably gonna be our top 3, but it's gonna be, where are we going to find the rest of the points? Who's going to win? Who are we going to interview by the end of the day? We'll find out after halftime.
We will indeed. Sphinx is leading it, but we do have a short break until we get into games 3 and then 4. So we'll be right back for more Fight Night Rising. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone, to Fight Night Rising. I'm Khroen, still joined by Booposaurus. I, lo- I love you, Boop.
Thank you.
How have you enjoyed the past couple of games? What are your thoughts so far in
Much
Set
better than
5
I'm enjoying
reckoning?
my hair right now. It's actually been sick. I've been looking forward to this for like 4 weeks, to be completely honest with you. And everything that I hoped is becoming a reality. And all the only thing that's a little surprising is just how, I kind of assumed six skirmishers would be a lot like duelists, where you would lock it in and just do well. But we've only had one version of it so far, and it did do well. We'll
Yeah.
see if it's going to keep going that way. It was uncontested, so we'll see if there are any copycats in the lobby, because there is something about TFT, and Sphinx was the originator of Tryndamere 3 one time. So Sphinx won a lobby with Tryndamere 3, and then 2 people ran Tryndamere, and then in the third lobby, 5 people ran Tryndamere.
True, that did happen.
And so that might happen today. The other things that are popping out are definitely the fact that every unit that got nerfed is still here, other than LeBlanc.
Yep, and it's very fascinating actually because they're still powerful, which makes me think they were a little actually overtuned, right? Not just people complaining about them, but they still can find their way into the meta. I'm curious if we do see more Jax, right? Because I almost hesitantly think that Jax overperformed in that lobby because other players were so weak in contesting each other with like Dravens and things of the like, and Jax seems like he did pretty well there. But if we go another lobby or up against like a lot of Karmas and Vel'Kozes and things of the like, we might have seen that Skirmisher comp have a different result, but we're gonna have to see how all that shapes up in game number 3 very shortly. But are there any comps that we haven't seen that you would like to by the end of the night, Boop?
No, I think we've. I do want to. I still think that there is a 4 Mystic comp out there that is probably really good.
Yeah.
If Vel'Koz was better, that we saw one. We saw one Vel'Koz. We haven't really seen Spellweavers, just in general. And I think a lot of the, Spellweavers are really intriguing because they're, other than Ziggs, Zyra and Victor are supports. Right, Victor will provide shield. Zyra is going to provide CC. So it's interesting when you get those to spam, but you're not really going to be putting items on Victor at a Forgotten comp.
Yeah.
You might be putting items on Zyra in a Draconic comp because you're getting so many free ones. But the moral of the story here is that if you expect to see something, you'll probably see it today, which is really cool. I always like bringing up the fact that Bonky Kong lasted 3 days. Right,
Yeah.
like legitimately lasted 3 days, and everyone remembers it like it was like a month-long meta, right? Because
I know, right?
because it was awesome. I don't know what it was, but Bonky Kong was so much fun to watch, and we're kind of in that stage right now. I kind of think that this Mordekaiser Aphelios might be closer to the Bonky Kong than like Warweek, if that makes sense, right? Warweek was
Yeah.
around for a whole patch. Bonky Kong was here for 3 days, and I do think the Mord and Aphelios will eventually start crawling back into the packs in favor of some of the super tanky options, because they were available during the PBE. It seemed like that was a purposeful choice to have attrition comps.
Yeah, definitely. On board with Sphinx in game number 3, our point leader over the course of the 2 games, but still 2 left to go. Can Sphinx carry the momentum forward? Because a couple players are on Sphinx's trail, very close behind, if you remember, of course, Chewy being at 16 and Marcel at 15. Sphinx has a couple of Hellions, has a sword, and a cloak as well. Some flexible items, could be a gunblade, probably not a spark actually. That's an item that I don't really see slammed that comes to mind. Ionic Spark. Probably one of the least favorite items, or favorite items, I suppose, in set 5.
That's okay with me. Ionic Spark is a set it and forget it item. Not
Yeah.
the Shadow version. The Shadow version is really cool. Not very strong. Had its moment in the PBE, but in general, I do like the fact that the set it and forget it Ionic Spark's not really here. You know me. I've been talking about this item for 4 sets now.
Yeah.
Right.
Same.
So,
Think back to me
right?
like Riven, Ionic Spark Riven, Ionic Spark Riven.
Yeah, yeah, and it should always be a niche item in my opinion, and I think we've hit it. So I think it's actually in a pretty okay spot. It might need like a smidgen more power, but anything more than that is going to make it too strong. in my opinion. So
Yeah.
we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens indeed. Couple rangers for Sphinx. Probably not going to make any items right now. Just going to wait for the armory on 2-2 to see what's up there. 3 Hellions is an option as well. We can just have Varus just as the best 4th unit to play. I feel like the Rod can go on the Ziggs kind of like always. Don't really need to wait for that if we want to try to go on a win streak here for Sphinx. Go up against Ueckar, who has a couple of brawlers and a Lissandra too in the back. Only 2 items it looks like, so they got a more gold favored start, which a lot of players would love.
You can get like 15 gold before round 2-1.
Yeah, you can get so much gold.
It is nuts. I saw someone at level 5 at 2-2 the other day, and I was with like gold, like stuff on his bench still, or their bench still. And I still don't get it. Remember that time someone had like 30 gold at like the first carousel, and we were like, "What's happening?"
Yeah, it's like that's crazy.
Right?
You must have gotten like as much gold as you literally could have, and then sold all your units basically and nearly open forwarded.
Yeah.
But econ game strong. You have
especially
more
on
money
this
to make
one,
more money. It's like real life.
You need 50 gold at level 8. You just need it, in my opinion. You need gold at level 8, or else you're never going to roll into your Dianas, your Mords, or any of your 4-cost units, which have obviously been where the power consolidation has been. I mean, the 4-cost units are better carries than some of our 5-cost units. Actually, most of our 5-cost units. The only real carry, there's 2 carry 5-costs, which are Viego and Kale. That's pretty much it.
Definitely. And I mean, I guess talking about like level 8 versus level 7. Level 7, I believe the odds did get buffed to roll 4-cost units, so some players are rolling a lot on 7. But yeah, the 50 gold being there is key. And some players like roll a lot on 4-1. They roll until they find their 4-cost carries. You can still go to 8 and do a similar thing, but you got to keep in mind, right? Scouting other players. How many players are contesting you? We kind of half-jokingly surmised that what if after seeing 1 Jax player, suddenly there's like 3 Jax players, and you can't wait to roll down at that point, at least until, you know, somebody else is eliminated, because then they go back into the pool. But you got to be thinking about that constantly. Who's contesting me? How many of the units do they have? Because remember, 4-cost carries, there's only 12 of them in the pool.
And that, if you pick up, so this is the other thing I hope starts happening. This set will also, I think, benefit from blocking units because some units are so contested. Like Kindred, there's only 9, right? And so there are only 9 Kindreds in this set. So, and it's not even throughout all 5-costs. I believe other 5-costs have 10 cards. You know, Kindred has 9, like you said, 12 for the 4-cost units. And if you take a 4th one, the percentage of someone else getting, you know, the complete set of 3 exponentially decreases. So especially in the late game, I think instead of grabbing your 5-cost units a la Billgate, you're actually going to start grabbing some 4-cost units.
Yeah. Exactly. I think a lot of times you reference a player, you know, Loco Doco, who denies units very actively. Something that it feels like players have done. Players did a lot like in the inception of TFT, but they kind of stopped. They're like, okay, we just need to prioritize other things with our time and our gold and everything else. But there's still a time and a place for it, of course. Killjoy.
Or, you know, Mort can tell you a legitimate strategy and the whole community can just be like, no.
Yeah, that's still so funny.
I'm sorry.
It's like, why don't you do this? They're like, nah. Just don't give Nico.
Yeah, you made the game, but I'm not gonna listen. What a gamer thing, by the way. Oh, so funny. As Killjoy, who has had a little bit of a rough time today, to be completely honest with you, finishing in the bottom 2, I believe, in the last couple lobbies. But that means that right now is the greatest time to start playing that spoiler and climbing your way up. The top 3 is moderately locked out right now, but you could potentially sneak into that 3rd spot with, say, 2 lobby wins or 2 top 2s. You never know. Don't ever fall victim to that self-fulfilling prophecy. Even though you might be coming into the 3rd lobby in 8th place, right? We have seen people go from 8th place to 3rd place in the last 2 lobbies. Do not just relegate yourself to losing. Always stay in it. Never give up.
Your win condition's always there. Even if it is, you got to get 2 firsts in a row to get a top 3. Like, play for it. You might as well, right? What do you got to lose? Killjoy having to do a kind of similar thing there because they only have 3 points moving into this game. But still, a couple firsts, that's 23. We've seen players get top 3, 23 points in the past.
we've seen lobby wins with 23 points, right? I believe actually El Tomo needed like a top 2 the last time they were here in order to get here, and they got it and snuck in 3rd place, I believe, to come back this week, along with Killjoy and INTC. But they are getting a little pushed out by, the quote-unquote regulars of TFT, which are the Sphinxes and the Marcels, who have been really consistent today, along with Chewy. And these openings have all been really similar. Lots of knights in the front line, lots of redeems, and not a ton of Draconic. I think we've seen 1 Draconic comp today.
Yeah.
And that's a little surprising as well. A lot of people at the early parts of a set, just like in other games like Hearthstone, will just go with aggro type of decks, and then as we go on, the slower comps start coming. And again, that's why I think that the Aphelios and the Mordekaiser might be an S- or like A+ kind of tier comp instead of that S+ tier comp that it was before the B patch.
Definitely. I'm looking at Killjoy's items right now with the Shadow Runans and the Shadow RFC, and I wonder where these really are going to end up. It's very, very curious to me, at least, to slam the Shadow RFC. Makes me think like maybe we're thinking about some kind of Jax composition or something, but maybe a Draven as well. I think those are the 2 units. Draven maybe more so that can come to mind there. But for now, they're going to be on the Callista. We get an 2nd Abomination. I haven't really seen that many Abominations either. I don't believe.
None of them.
Yeah.
No one has played Abomination.
None.
I mean, that ZZ Rot situation was...
Yeah, that was a little crazy. Good thing you nerfed that one.
Yeah, that was like a health of the game type of change, right? And it still is good, though. I mean, the Abomination is just like Supreme Overlord Galio, in which if you don't have a ton of really good items, the Abomination might be able to use some of these other items a little bit better than your actual units. An Abomination with a GA and Rageblade is pretty good. And you can expect those items to be in most team comps, but they took away the Abomination 2 option. You have to put the 3 in, which forces you to kind of do a brawler opening, which just isn't popular when it comes to that particular start. So we'll see what happens. Nunu, I would love to see a little bit more often, but we just aren't really seeing that comp right now.
Yeah. Unfortunately not. The more I look at Killjoy's board and those items, I feel like it has to be Draven. There's like really nothing else. Has the Nico's help on the bench though, so they're gonna be faster to get the Draven 2 over other players. Ueckar running 4 Brawlers. 4 Brawlers not the most common start, but I think it's actually really good. A little bit underrated. That's a lot of HP that you're getting, and these units of course aren't going to scale well into the late game, but they're very good like exactly now. They do start falling off really soon, though.
So, in case you guys, gals and pals at home, are wondering, that's 1,000 flat HP for 4 Brawlers. And it's actually really funny, since we just got done talking about this comp and how underwhelming it was. And so, 4 Brawlers, it's kind of like old school Chosen Italy, which is, it has its like 5 rounds of time in the sun, and then that's it. And Brawlers are a very good band-aid for your team comp, right?
Yeah, that's a good word for it, for sure.
It's not going to be something that you completely invest yourself into. I mean, like, you might... There's always a hyper roll option when any 1-cost unit is in any team comp, right? So maybe if you hyper roll into set 3 and Warwick 3, you might be able to take this a little longer, but Warwick 3 getting 1,000 HP isn't as valuable as a Warwick 1 or set 1 getting 1,000 HP in terms of percentages. So definitely take that into consideration, and that's why Brawlers are good right here and right now. Just 1,000 HP, much more valuable in the early parts of the game.
Definitely so. Ueckar wants to figure out what the transition will be, because it's good right now, of course, with the Brawlers, but you're going to transition out of it. Picks up a Mordekaiser that was found by rolling a sizable amount of gold. Rolling to 20 on 3-2 is probably about the lowest that you will want to roll. Any more than that will just like grief your econ beyond repair, it feels like. And has a lot of the item components to go for a solid Mordekaiser and Legionnaire composition, right? There's a Quicksilver Oftentimes, you really want to get a Caustic Quicksilver, which is the shadow version of it. It makes you, of course, permanently resistant to crowd control. You cannot get crowd controlled ever during a fight, but the regular Quicksilver will just be 12 seconds. Still good enough in most scenarios, but we have the sword there, as well as a shadow belt for maybe that shadow Warmogs as well. So that transition is an option. We'll see if Ueckar finds anything else, however.
One of the biggest changes when it comes to set 5 is we used to say all the time that as the game gets later, the rounds get shorter. That is not the case in this set. There are some comps in the late game that will literally take forever to kill each other, right? So 12 seconds isn't really that long, right? That's why when you see, is it 8 seconds for 3 Verdant? Right? That felt like such a long time, but it really wasn't. So now how do we get out of brawlers, right? So we're going the renewer trait. We have some Dawnbringers, so we can go through the Dawnbringer area and potentially go Invokers, or we can keep going Legionnaires, or excuse me, Legionnaires for the Mordekaiser, because you're just pushing that power, right? You're the person like pushing him up the stairs, right? Mordekaiser has a lot of armor on and needs a little bit of support getting up the stairs, and that's what you're trying to provide right now.
Yeah, perhaps the spat can come through as well with the Legionnaire, because you have a spat on the Nunu already. The bow that doesn't really find its way onto a Mordekaiser. It can go into the Draven, of course. Ueckar wanting the rod. Yeah, it looks like this is definitely a Mordekaiser committal with that rod, because that can make the Gunblade. Needs to find a lot more Legionnaires, though. There is 0 on the bench or board. Oh, yeah. Correct me?
Legionnaires?
There we go.
I don't know that word you just said. I'm unaware of that definition.
Yeah, me neither.
Okay, Ueckar, not Miakar, is trying to find their way, right? I think a lot of people get super baited into building attack speed on Mordekaiser. It feels like you really need it, but that's why Legionnaires exist, right? It's to get that base attack speed to a point where you don't need it. It's spirit without spirit. A little bit, right? It's spirit instead of it doing the whole team, it's just those specific units. And we're still having that Mordekaiser on the bench, which is okay. Our brawlers are starting to lose. Remember, it is past that like 5 rounds right now. We might pick up another win here as the INTC is weak.
1000 HP across the board is pretty strong. It's a lot to have to get through, and a lot of boards will not be able to do that, right? INTC's board wasn't.
Yeah, INTC's board also on the weaker side. And there's the mystery spat here, right? Remember, there's 16 spats that this could potentially go into. If you're feeling really spicy, you pick up a Shadow Spat in the Armory and take double damage for the rest of the game to get 2 units, right? And at this level of play, that is something you need to consider, because players at this level understand where you're going to lose and win a lot better than people in gold/plat. So they're going to be able to utilize those kinds of items a lot better than us plebs.
Definitely. It looks like Ueckar was also perhaps thinking about going the Aphelios route as well, because the items weren't slammed to Mordekaiser, so they can very well flex to different compositions, right? You don't have to lock yourself into just one of them. Marcel P.
spent so much money.
Yeah. Did spend a lot of money, but hey, when options are thrown at you, you got to be able to flex into them sometimes, right? That's the I guess the mark of a good TFT player is you can take what's thrown at you regardless of what you already had, right? You got to be able to drop these units that you're already mentally committed to if it's not the best option moving forward.
Yep, something we say on Fight Night Rising: do not develop relationships with your units.
Yeah.
It's a real thing. Like, I, for some reason, love building bad units with items. I don't know why. I just want to see it, and I like it, right? But I have to, like, physically tell myself, like, out loud, don't do this if you want a top 4, right? Like, this is not fun. You think it's fun, it's not going to be fun, Chris. You know what I mean? And in Reckoning, I think intention is just one of the pillars of this particular set. Is when you do make a decision, you can't waffle. You got to go for it. And you have to understand that a decision isn't going to lead you down one path. It might lead you down a path of a couple different choices. And again, you have to have the context to make the correct choice at that time. As we move over to INTC, who has a lot of units on the board, but only one of them just now got tier 2'd.
Speaking of choices as well, a lot of choices gotta be made here with these roles because we gotta find a direction. You have 0 gold right now. You gotta sell the units on the bench just to make something happen. That Varus is the thing that's upgraded, but that's not the carry that you want, unfortunately. INTC, real rough spot here. Already one of the lowest HP players in the lobby has not found a 4-cost carry after rolling down literally every single bit of gold on level 7. This, I mean, 6 redeemed, sure, that's okay, but that's still going to be losing some rounds, even if not this one.
And we've got the spaghetti monster in the back line getting some help from the Lux to get a second ultimate off. And whenever Vel'Koz gets a couple ultimates, that's usually all you need. But this is really funny. This happens a lot where Lux is the last unit remaining, and you're kind of just waiting. And then Lux does this, right? It's not technically over. She could crit.
Okay, close.
Her ult screwed her up there. If she didn't ult, she might have actually crit a couple times and taken him down. Because the crits in the late game do a little bit more, I believe. As we have Shadow Sword, Shadow Bow, and then regular Cloak. So what is that cloak gonna become? Probably not an Ionic Spark.
I mean, it could be. Worst comes to worst. You have the items built for an AP composition, so it's like gonna get some value. Finally, finding a Vel'Koz for a carry potential. Have a lot of redeems in as well. Rel pair. Yeah, the Varus, even though it's tier 2, I think you might just have to make the switch. Like Vel'Koz is just gonna be more powerful than the Varus too.
Just you know, is on the JV team, right? Varus is on the JV team right now. It needs to play up to the varsity level to try to make things happen. Those are pretty good items. We're gonna get a lot of ults, and remember that ult is not just an AoE ability. It's also gonna give a little bit more damage to all of the allies that live inside that ult, as well as this Thresh at tier 1 pulls Varus out of the corner, and you know, we're good to go.
Yep. Look at that refracted Dragon Claw though on the Nautilus with the Warmogs. So tanky, nothing could get through that. INTC takes yet another loss, drops to 30, but Killjoy is even lower. Unfortunate. Really needs Vel'Koz too, but again, the gold to get that just is not there. Can replace the Varus? Maybe.
There is a, you know, sometimes you just hit. Right, sometimes you get 2 Vel'Kozes in your pack on your first roll, and unfortunately for INTC, we are not in that timeline, as we still don't even know exactly what comp we're running right now.
I mean, Vel'Koz, but 6 redeemed is like not actually a great trait to chase because it means you're running these kind of crappy units, right? You're running an Aatrox at only the 1-star, running a 2-star Leona, but Leona doesn't really do much. You have Lux, who's okay. Varus you want to sell eventually, so that's like already 3 redeemed, excuse me, that you don't want to have on board. You barely win against Killjoy, but Killjoy is the weakest player in the lobby, somehow with being 0 gold, you know, level 7. Rough.
2!
Yeah.
They're both 0 gold level 7. And even getting that win against Killjoy doesn't really matter. I mean, we're not going to be able to level up. We're going to have 0 gold still. We're going to have 1 more gold than Killjoy for this next round.
Yeah.
Are we going to get the Vel'Koz just to get the unit? It looks like it.
We need it. We really just need it.
And we don't have money. That's 4 gold saved, right? And that's 2 rolls potentially to get into that Vel'Koz tier 2 Vel'Koz instead of that Vel'Koz maybe 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Already scouting around and seeing there are other Vel'Koz 2s in the lobby. Find a Volibear, but again, if you want to run 6 redeemed, you can't run the Volibear, so selling that off immediately. Continuing to roll. Just hit. We gotta just hit.
Sometimes, you know, as much as TFT players want to say that this isn't RNG, there's a lot of strategy, and performance will prove that, right? If you put 2 masters in a lobby of, you know, 6 plats, the 2 masters players will most likely win all those lobbies. But in this situation, you just need to go for it. You just need to hit.
Yeah, you really just do, but did not, at least in that round. Thinking about slamming the Spark just to get a little bit more value. The Vel'Koz ulti comes through and it takes out the Aphelios 1 in the back. That's very key. INTC might go on a bit of a win streak finally, at least a 2-win streak.
We saw a little bit of a power up just then.
Killjoy
The
falling.
Rel ult helped a lot in terms of that Vel'Koz. The way that the board ended up going was they met in the middle on a diagonal. What does Vel'Koz do? Ult in a diagonal. So it is the perfect scenario. And so if you're trying to run this Vel'Koz comp, try this kind of formation. You have to corner the Vel'Koz if you want that to happen. But a lot of times boards will naturally correlate in the middle, and Vel'Koz finds a lot of value there. So if you know there's a Vel'Koz, sometimes spreading your units apart is going to be a little bit better. Did he hit that Vel'Koz just now?
I actually was not looking.
There is a Vel'Koz too. And
yeah, there was already another one. There was already another Vel'Koz too. That was not INTC.
Best in slot Aphelios items, cool.
Yeah, Hodge being the one that can be others. It can be like BT, Renan, something of the sort, but Hodge is definitely going to be a solid one. Dawnbringer Katarina, but it falls actually really quickly. It looks like the Nidalee triple item though is going to be enough. No IE for her to really like proc her ability there, but still. The Deathblade is enough. Does 4,000 damage, takes out Ueckar in that round. This is very unorthodox composition, but it's working out really well. Level 8, 50 gold, still 71 HP in this lobby. I love seeing things like this because they're not standard, but they're working out like super well against the rest of the lobby.
That's what set 5 is. That's what we were so excited about in this particular set, was the option to do just that. Is you are not locked into whatever that tier list says, right? You can pick counters much easier in this particular set than you could ever have done before, right? Some more than others. Like, it's really easy to counter Vel'Koz, not as easy to counter some other units, but in the end, you can run, the Nidalee because maybe there's a ton of auto attack based champs and no one has, an RFC or an RFC, and so those kinds of changes, those kinds of decisions really, really matter. And if you notice that there's no RFCs on any of your units and you've got the dodge available, Nidalee might be a really great choice as we're starting to pivot.
We're pivoting very aggressively. I don't actually think that Duskglade needed to pivot here, but they are choosing to, and I think that's very fine because these rolls are coming through and they are hitting. Karma 2, hit the Jax 2, which I don't think we absolutely need, but hit the Aphelios 2 as well. This is just it. That's the comp that you wanted right now. We have it after like 30 gold or so, maybe a little bit more than that, but still.
Just hit. And we have a GA on the Aphelios, which is really nice. So at least when we get res, we're going to be able to use those Deathblade procs. But the other thing that a lot of people, I think, have a hard time seeing through the pixels is people like the combination of the Karma and the Aphelios. What do both of their ults do? The same thing. Right, they'll go to 3 different people and hit them, and so you spread that damage across the entire board when both of those are there, or you're gonna put all of that damage into individual units and you just saw them get deleted because of it. So you have a lot of AoE damage. You might not feel like it right now, but this Karma and Aphelios are going to be doing a ton of damage to everyone's boards off of just 1 or 2 ults.
Yeah. Okay, the board, I was gonna say, the board still has to change for Dawnglade. 6 Dawnbringers is fantastic, sure buffs the Karma, but does nothing for the Aphelios. There's also no Ranger to buff the Aphelios either, but there is going to be just more frontline now. There's going to be the Eclipse Cape, which is the Shadow Sunfire that goes onto the Nautilus. There's the Dawnbringer Darius, and Darius, of course, as we mentioned earlier, the Armor Shred there helps out Aphelios a ton. Still no Ranger buff for him, though, but the Karma going to be able to output so much more damage. Wow. The Karma, though, on the other board.
Karma's so good and so satisfying to watch. I don't know what it is about her that I love. I never actually play her. I tend to go away from just AP-based comps in general. I don't think I've really ever mained an AP or mage comp in TFT. But Karma's really satisfying and so strong, is one of those units, especially if you have your second Dawnbringer, that's just going to get a reset involved. You get your Invoker in, you have your blue buff, you've got your crits, for example. Things are really looking up for you just based off of this Karma with the Aphelios, with the Jax, with the Darius, and the Heimerdinger. This is an expensive unit. No one on the board right now is lower than a 3-cost unit. If you take the Ash away, then it changes to 4.
Yeah, and the Ashe just got on the board, of course, replacing Nautilus, who is a 2 cost, but changing the positioning a little bit. Karma goes to the middle, wanting to spread out against Vel'Koz's, and we do run into a Vel'Koz from Sphinx, but it's going to be shooting that ultimate through to the Ashe, and the carriers from Dawnglade are going to be protected here. And we have 5 Aphelioses in Nico's help. If anyone else has Aphelioses, which we do see one on Sphinx's bench, then that's going to stop Dawnglade from getting the tier 3, or at least make it harder. Aphelios needs to cast one more time. Does so. And run over to the high return.
Oh, he's got the GA. He's got the GA anyway.
Yeah, he's chilling.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Vel'Koz just doesn't feel like he does that much damage, right? Has the ability, and it feels like a lot of that ultimate went off, and just, you know, just because it's locked in a singular direction versus Aphelios and Karma, who are gonna get their hits off. Right, there isn't that sense of missing your ultimate or missing it on some people. You're always going to have 100% accuracy on it. I think that's why it's going to find itself a little bit more consistently. Vel'Koz, I think, is going to need a little bit more discovery to really find its place. Is going to be one of those late game compositions that I think come about here in a week or two, or when it gets touched on the next patch. I have a feeling this unit will appear in the patch notes.
Yeah. Okay, Marcel decides to use every single bit of gold to level 9 because, of course, you can fit in some more Invokers, some Revenants with the pair of Ivern and Volibear. Now, they both were kind of gutted, like there's really no other way to say it in the B patch, like the Ivern Daisy nerf that we talked about earlier, as well as the Volibear Mana nerf, as well as the Revenant nerf, right? There's 3 nerfs that hit that pairing. But still, they're strong enough to find their way onto Marcel's board, and Volibear with the Shadow Morellos, the best item on him, can apply it to a lot. Unfortunately, he kind of jumps backwards there in that fight, and with that, looks like he's going to lose.
Do you know what's absolutely crazy about the fact that Ivern just can make Daisy? Is if all of you old whippersnappers in the chat remember that you needed 4 units to get Daisy in set 1? And you just need Ivern now.
Was it 4 or 3? That was 3.
Was it 3? Was it 3 Elementalist?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it was Ninja Elementalist, so it would be 4 and 3.
Yeah.
With Ken and B.
But still, 3 units, yeah.
Yeah, like you would need 3 whole units. Now you just need 4 gold, right? And then you get the Invoker in, and it's even better than that version of Daisy. Look at where we've come from. A whole, and there was less space on that map too. So like, you even had less space, and you had a position for Daisy, for example. It was very different back in those days. It was another reality. I'm not even sure it was the same parallel universe as this one.
Yeah, I don't know. Crazy. The Zephyr does not connect on a good target, just hits the Vel'Koz 1. There's a Teemo 2 on whoever's board that was.
That's like 18 health.
Yeah, 18 health. Hopefully not. Hopefully maybe one was Nico or something, but 18 health is a big price to pay for that cruel little devil. He's going to fall over on this board, though. Karma. I actually, I hate Karma. I'll just say it. Random targeting. No, like, it's frustrating to play against. It's satisfying it works for you. But if you're against a Karma and she just hits your carry back to back because of random targeting, like, oof. That's, that's an oof.
I would say that that's... Karma's, I think, one of those high-level versus low-level units that in, like, Diamond and below, people just aren't using Karma that well.
Yeah.
Because she's not fancy, right? She's not going to jump into the line like Volibear, for example, right? She doesn't have a big hook like Thresh. She just ults and auto attacks, right? But that's on them for making those assumptions, right? This has been one of the strongest units in the set since it's released. With the Invoker buff, you're already seeing that it's actually ulting every single auto attack. That's where I think we should get some changes, as Marcel going to pick up the Teemo. 6 HP is a lot at this point in the game, when we've had 1 or 2 HP decide who's 5th and 4th place. That's 2 points in the final standings, decided by potentially buying or not buying a Teemo during your game.
Exactly. Renewer spat came through for Marcel and could actually run 4 Renewer. And that would actually be really, really strong, I think. But see if they actually do that. Oh, Dawnglade finds Aphelios 3 right now before going up against Sphinx. Sphinx hates to see it. Sphinx could fall here, actually, even with the Teemo 2.
The good news about Sphinx is that we have a pretty big cushion for the top 3, and the Aphelios is not even going to get below half health. I think the only unit that's going to be able to take this Aphelios down is going to be a fully stacked Teemo.
Okay, won't fall here, but Sphinx narrowly does. Drops to 2 HP. If Ueckar wins, okay, does lose, so maybe Ueckar can fall, and Sphinx can salvage a top 4, but yeah, Sphinx has a bit of a cushion. Other players are going to be looking to take Sphinx down in this one, but Sphinx not recognizing that. Says, time to go all in. Let's level to 9, put Ironclad 3 onto the board. Needs to find more Heimers. Heimer 2 would be a massive power spike. Teemo can't really do enough on his own, it seems, because Sphinx is on a 5 loss streak with this board.
Which looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It's actually just a lot of tier 1 units, other than Teemo, which is weird. This is a weird board, actually.
It is.
We have a tier 1 everything. But again, the cheapest unit here is the Nautilus, which is there just to make sure that this board isn't anemic at the end of the day. So we have the Ironclad. And this Karma is going to continue doing a lot of work. We're going to need to build magic resist at this point. So whoever is left at this carousel, I would assume that they're going to be looking for magic resist items, as there's a lot of it coming from this Karma. But then what do you do? Because there's also an Aphelios 3, right? So who are you going to be defending against?
Depends on the matchup. You got to guess who you're going to be facing, because it's down to R3. Sphinx falls in 5th. Ueckar manages to sneak into the top 4. Chewy looks like found a Garen 2. Has Kale 2 and a Heimer 2. Well, that board is nuts.
This is not a nut-free zone. Did you have one of those at school?
I don't remember.
So
actually, yeah.
Yeah, we had like a specific table at lunch that if you had peanuts in it, you had to sit at the table, and it was like the peanut table. Or was it the opposite? Was it the kids who were allergic to peanuts sat at that table?
Yeah, I think that's what it was in mine, at least.
Yeah, I have a lot of allergies. Thank goodness it's not peanut butter. Oh. Anyway, we have a top 3 now, though. Marcel and Chewy once again. Chewy really showing up today. If y'all are wondering why we haven't seen Chewy, the stream just isn't friendly right now, but we get to see him on the other side of a lot of these boards, so we get to really talk about matchups when it comes to Chewy, who is running 4 Invokers right now. So you're noticing that we've got the God Kings, we have a couple legendary units, but again, the utility and support, Ironclad, Invoker, Knight, right, is really the reason why these comps are finding late game power.
Yeah, I would love for the stream quality to be there for Chewy to kind of see how Chewy is able to craft all of this, because it's fantastic to get to that spot, and it's really difficult to do. You have a lot of decisions, right? Like, what is going to be your strong early game board to get you here? What are the transitions like? And still being able to preserve like about 50 HP is pretty hard to do most of the time. Duskglade is going to try to go to 9 soon, but with Aphelios 3, can kind of rest easy. They did win that round against Chewy, at least Chewy's clone, I believe it was.
This is by far the longest game we've had today. I don't think any of our games have actually made it to 6-5 just yet, which makes sense that this is a long game, as we have a potential Karma 3. I think all the Karmas are gone. We have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10... 11. Yeah, we have 11 out of, I think, the 12 Karmas on the board right now. And so if either one of them falls, Karma 3 is on the menu. Will Marcel live? Yes. So we're going to have to wait. Karma 3 and Aphelios 3. I mean, at that point, it's the lobby's fault for letting that happen.
Yeah, right? Chewy is going to... Once Marcel falls, what Chewy should actually do is just aggressively roll for Karmas and try to deny them.
I mean, there's only one left. So there's only one Karma.
Once Marcel falls, so they'll go back to the pool.
Yep, so literally save all your gold until Marcel falls. You're probably going to beat Marcel. And so the Karmas all go back. And so roll your 100-something gold to get to your Karma 3, because Aphelios 3 feels like a game-winning situation, especially with, the Darius in the front line. But you never know with CC and, Kale in the back line. So this is not completely solved just yet. Will Marcel be able to deny these Karmas from Duskglade?
What to say? Aphelios 3 just does so much damage. Even when the Kale ascends, it's just not enough. Duskglade looking like they're going to win the lobby even without the Karma 3. Chewy's down to basically 1 life. Marcel wins though, so 3 players going to move into stage 7, Boop. We get the Nexus minion round. We get a Gunblade for, I guess, the Heimerdinger it could go on to.
50 gold and a Hextech Gunblade. Heimerdinger is a nice unit for that Hextech Gunblade, though it's not going to find its value until a little later on. Heimerdinger takes a little bit to get to that ultimate, and we still have some power we could find on Marcel's side. Unfortunately, all those units are here on this board, and Marcel is just never going to beat this Dawnbringer board, this or Duskglade board, because it's the same comp, and this one is gonna be better forever because of Aphelios 3.
Yeah, I know. It's just it's so insane. Duskglade gets to go to 9, still with 50 gold, is rolling, doesn't have really the chance to hit the Karmas, or the Karma 3 at least, but it's gonna roll for, say, like Volibear 2, things of the like. Yeah, Gunblade. Gunblade is not gonna work on the Darius, because Darius, I believe his spell is physical damage.
It would work with a Bloodthirster, though, friends.
Yeah.
So Bloodthirster is not just auto attacks; it's all physical damage now. Just throwing that out there. That's something that I've noticed a lot of people are learning once someone says it out loud. You know what I mean? So just throwing it out there.
Yeah, because like the Aphelios spell, a lot of times that comes into play. Yeah, the Gunblade is going to go into the Heimerdinger. We're facing that other Karma with the Renewer. We face a Garen 2 as well. Aphelios, he's dropped pretty low.
Oh, this is close. Teemo can do... oh, never mind. So the other thing that we haven't seen with Teemo just yet is if Teemo finishes in a 1v1, Teemo automatically wins.
Yep, cruel trait coming through.
Just
wow,
so funny. But yeah, Chewy
falls
Chewy's
in 3rd from being that far ahead of Marcel in HP.
Yep, and so we're gonna go to 7-2. 45 HP is exactly 3 losses. Just base damage, so we probably have 2 losses remaining. We might get to this carousel as we see our first rise get completed. What's going on with these Forgotten units? Just they're not even getting splashed in a lot of them as their secondary traits, right? Like, this is the first Mystic Splash we've seen with Rise.
Yeah, Forgotten, I mean, it really just goes to buff the Forgotten units, and they don't really need to. They're just going to be in for the utility right now. Viego to try to steal a unit, Rise for the Mystic, and Mystic going to be amazing against the Karma. And the Heimerdinger as well. Looks like the Aphelios is going to come out on top on this one. He's still alive, pumping all his damage through, and yeah, Garen's going to fall here. Marcel falls as well, and Duskglade takes game number 3.
That Marcel comp probably wins 7 out of 10 other lobbies, right? Will probably win 70% of the time. Just not, this was 3 out of 1 of the 3 remaining. The standings should look pretty similar. Marcel probably takes the lead here, but I'm actually really curious to see where Duskglade is going to end up going, because Duskglade wasn't in the running, but again, a lobby win can always bring you back.
Exactly. We still, there's a lot of movement to happen after, the first 2 games. By no means over at that point. I'm curious to see how they shake up as well. And the scores are ready, so let's find out together. We have a tie for first place. Chewy and Marcel, now the only 2 players to have top 4 every single game, are tied at 23 points. Sphinx is tied with Duskglade for 3rd, 21 points apiece. So that top 4, we're definitely going to look out for moving into game number 4. Ueckar is at 14 points. INTC is at 10. Unfortunately, INTC down, cannot make it into the top 4. Ueckar could theoretically make the top 3. Would have to involve a lot of specific placements, though.
A feels bad man indeed. So I have a question for you, Khroen. If you were a car, what would you be?
What?
Because you a car, right? If you were a car, what would you be? I would 100% be a Fiat.
I have no idea, actually. I've literally never thought of that question in my life.
I feel like,
get back to me next week, I'll have an answer.
I'm married, but I feel like this is good for Tinder.
Yeah?
Like, as like an opening question, right? What kind of car do you think you are? Do you think that would work? work? I don't know. It's been so long.
I don't know. I'll use it and I'll get back to you and see how it works.
Thank you. We need it for
I'll do
science.
some research. I'll do some research on that one.
Yeah, definitely a Fiat though for me. Chat, if you were a car, what would you be? I think that's an interesting question. I think it actually, like, if someone says Jeep, I feel like that says something about it.
It really does. I just it just caught me off guard because I just literally just hadn't thought of it before. But I'll do some thinking. I'll do some soul searching, and I'll figure it out because I really just don't know. I'm not really,
because
I'm not a car person.
I know that our producer Kimiko can't respond. I feel like Kimiko is some type of like mid-utility sports vehicle, like with like super cool interior design.
Yeah,
You know what? I think, Khroen, you might be a Tesla.
Interesting.
Yeah, like
I could, yeah. Producer saying I could see that. I'm like, I could probably see that too. Actually, I'm trying to be efficient. I'm trying to.
Yeah, efficient.
I'm trying to be real efficient.
On the quieter side, but knows to have humor. Right. I actually think Tesla would work really well for you.
Yeah, I'm down with that answer actually.
Yeah, like that's the best one. I called myself a Fiat, Khroen.
You know,
get to be a Tesla.
I'm gonna say I'm not a car person. I literally don't even know what a Fiat like looks like. Like I really couldn't even tell you what a Fiat is.
It's that like really
ugly. Fiat.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, okay.
It's an ostentatious car, I would say.
I see. Yeah, this checks out for you.
Yeah. Okay. I'm actually. We're gonna go into the game now. Man, what happens to us in the fourth lobby, dude? It's like every single time.
I don't know, but we are in that fourth lobby, of course, and we're gonna be giving you some TFT action now. Car talk segment is over, and we are back into the game. Ueckar with a tier on the Leona.
Thanks Kimiko for starting on Ueckar, by the way. I guarantee you that was on purpose.
Yes.
So 14 points for Ueckar, who I feel like is probably like, I don't know. This is actually hard. This is a fun game. I like it. Anyway, back to actual TFT. What's been intriguing to me is how quickly Leonas get dropped from a lot of these team comps. They're in every round for the first 3 rounds on every single board, and then you never see them again.
Basically, there are a lot of boards if you're running Redeemed or Knight, one of the two. They're like super solid there, but then of course, like you said, you never see them again. Just really do anything. The only other time I think I've seen Leona be ran into the late game is if you're rerolling Forgotten, and you have her as a random 3-star frontliner as a Knight. But that's really it, and that's, a very rare circumstance. Ueckar, though, probably not going to go that route because they do just have like a blue buff components and an extra rod. Looking like a Karma.
Looking like a Karma. And based off how that went last game, I'm pretty sure that all the Karmas will not be on just 2 benches this time around. But usually, right, you see 2 tiers and you're like, oh no, this is the worst. But now there are actually a couple people who can use those double tier starts, right?
Yeah.
You can have some people hold it, like the Ziggs, to put on Karma later, to put on Viego later. There are at least like 3 units in the game for every item. Right, is what I feel like.
Yeah.
Not every unit can use everything, but I think every item can find use at some point, if that makes sense.
Agreed, for sure. Blue buff, of course, going to be fantastic on the Ziggs, the relatively low mana pool. Going to be 40 mana total, I believe. So he needs 1 more auto attack, and then he'll be able to cast. And then 2 more auto attacks and cast every time. Blue buff, fantastic item.
Blue buff is an amazing item, and it is a flat mana item now. So remember, when every unit ults, their mana changes, right? So every auto attack gets more mana usually after that first ultimate. So you get that blue buff, and so you only need 1 or 2 auto attacks to get to that first ultimate, and then the other ultimates cycle a lot faster.
Yep. Definitely, which a lot more spell damage. Wide Ziggs did 1k there, and means that INTC took a 2-0 loss. Sure, that Kennen is there, but went through that Hellion portal, came back, and won't be doing any damage based off of just being the unit left on the board. kind of a mouthful there, but that's how it works.
I mean, this set is a mouthful, right? There's just so much that can happen every single turn on all 8 boards, right? And something else that I'm sure everyone at home is noticing is there's action on most turns, right? There's cycling going on. People are starting to econ. There's not a ton of, I mean, it's still happening. And if you're econing, this will happen where you just don't do anything for 7 rounds other than just move your characters, right? Or move your champs.
Yeah.
And I think even though the early game is a little bit standard, it's just put some tanky units, get your brawler or your knight in the front line, maybe your Lysandra or Ziggs in the back line, right? But the fact that the standard starts are pretty similar and how different the end games are for a lot of these things is fascinating to me.
Definitely. Ooh, Marcel, level to 5 on 2-2. So probably definitely had a gold start there.
Yeah,
that's why I wanted to bring it up, and I noticed that it happens on the right-hand side. That's super aggressive, but allows you to go on a win streak and protect it, right? Moving that 5 win streak into Krugs means you earn a lot of that gold back, you save HP, and you just put yourself in a good spot.
And that's how you set yourself up for like a 4-3 level 8, right?
Yeah.
Like you can rush level 8 really, really quickly by hitting level 5 a little bit faster. So again, I'm going to break it down just a little bit. So question, why don't you level, if you have 4 gold, why don't you level early in the NPC rounds always, right? Because if you only have the 4, right, you don't know if you're going to win that first round. And if you level early and then lose... That feels bad. That is not good for you. We've seen it happen one time here in Fight Night, and that was one of the fastest 8th places I think we've ever seen when it came to that situation. However, if you do hit and you get your like tier 3 unit or something, right, with good items, then you win streak and you're just going to be rolling in the dough the whole time. But the idea is that you're going to pace in front of the lobby for all of the early game. If you lose one time, that momentum, that money that you've invested just goes to waste, right? So you have to maintain that advantage. You have to maintain that power level, because once you hit level 5, it's not about just being level 5. It's about finding a tier 2 unit as well, because 2 tier 2 units in a level 4 comp versus 5 tier 1 units, those 5 tier 1 units could lose.
Definitely could. And we see kind of why Marcel opted to level to 5. It was to fit everything we see on the board right now, to fit the 2 Brawler synergy in there, the 2 Assassin, of course Dawnbringer with the Kha'Zix and the Gragas combo, one of the strongest combos in the early game, but also just because you have a Ziggs too. Want to throw that in just for a bit of extra damage, protecting that streak, right? Which is why we see Marcel at one of the 2 players at 100 HP, Sphinx being the other. Chewy did lose to just 1 Hellion, it looks like. That's why we see odd numbers in this stage now, is because if you lose to like the Hellions that come back, they don't deal any damage themselves, but you will always take at least 1 damage if you lose the round. These 100 HP loss streaks that we saw in the past, like ZZ Rots and stuff.
Yeah, it's like losing, like exactly like you said, to a ZZ Rot Beetle or Daisy. And only Daisy or just a Heimer turret, which happens because for some reason the Heimer turret will crit you.
Oh yeah, it does so much damage actually. Like Heimer turrets are deceptively strong.
Yeah, I mean, even though it kind of reminds me of Gazlo turrets from Heroes. You know, like they literally shoot pebbles, but then it's like, why am I dead?
Yeah, it's like, wait a minute, I'm like 20% health before you realize it, and it's like, just wait, stop.
Yeah, exactly. And so Heimerdinger is the same way here. It's 2 units, and remember that turret will get the stats from Heimerdinger's items. So if you like Shadow Zephyr Heimerdinger, the turret, I believe, gets the stats too. I'd have to ask more about that.
Yeah, I'm not actually, I haven't seen that or actually like paid attention to it, but yeah, it might.
Because if you put Rage Blade on Heimer, right, the turret also starts attacking faster. So if you get Shadow Zephyred, it would probably give the turret 80% more damage too.
Yeah,
right?
Maybe chat knows, but I would imagine it works. I'm just like not 100% on it for sure. Marcel picks up the Diana. Did not run her last round because Marcel actually slammed the I believe Zeke's Bleak Herald, the Shadow Zeke's there, so it's going to be stealing attack speed from the units to the left and the right, but then giving the Nocturne more. Nocturne, kind of one of the worst 3 costs when it comes to carry potential, which is why we see it, you know, come out right now, but it's just the item holder. But Marcel aggressively opting to build that item means that you really just want to go for that win streak protection, right? Marcel wants to be in a position where they can secure their top 3 placement, even if they don't like win the lobby per se and win Fight Night. I mean, it's a very like top 4 playstyle there, I think.
if you level this early, you don't want to lose until this next carousel round. That's kind of like my thought process, right? If you lose after it, you've already gotten into your interest, right? You've probably gotten some value out of it. At least it's not a complete wash,
Yeah.
right? And so you can feel okay about it, but getting to wolves, chickens? I don't know why I'm wolves is probably better, right?
Yeah.
One of the greatest Fight Night Rising players ever, Numano, was amazing at that. And understanding what that is. But we're going to have to figure out where that Nidalee ends up going a bit later, as I think we have a little bit of a pause.
Yeah, I'm going to try to get a perspective back so we can get back into the game, see what players rolled on their Krugs rounds, see how that's shaping up, and we're back in. Nice and easy.
Nice and easy. Every dad has said that about something. Nice and easy.
Every dad?
Nice and easy. Yeah.
Oh god, am I channeling some dad energy right now? I'm too young. I'm too ready for this.
I mean, you are a Tesla. I feel like Teslas are pretty big dad energy, to be honest with you.
Oh no, I hate it. No longer a Tesla. I revoke this.
Anyway,
Not a fan.
We get the Nico's 2 gold here for INTC, which is not what you want right now. And you've got to give it up to Marcel and Sphinx for consistently placing pretty well. Sphinx is on the bubble right now in terms of coming back next week, but this is a pretty good start for Sphinx. We usually don't see Sphinx start at the top. It's usually, you know, you go towards the bottom and then you kind of hang on and pick up units as other people fall. That's part of what Sphinx does. And of course, he likes playing slow games in general. I bet he was a control player back in the, you know, in card game days. And Marcel, for example, I feel like was probably going to be an aggro player, right?
Yeah.
Really has started every single game in first place through most of those rounds, and ends up finishing in top 4 due to attrition, which is a legitimate way of playing this game. Marcel is going to have a hard time winning lobbies like that, but if you top 4 every lobby, you're going to win a competition eventually. And let's see if Marcel's going to be able to take the dub in that way.
I'm really curious about how this Killjoy composition is going to be playing out, because that is a Forgotten spat slammed already on 3-1. Forgotten comps, Draven's probably coming through with that one. That is exciting. See exactly what that shapes up into a bit later.
For everyone at home, yes, there are 16 spats, but there are good resources out there that you can pin to your Discords or print out for yourself as a little bit of a guide. Again, I just want to say there's nothing wrong with getting that help, right? You're not going to win an award for memorizing quicker, right? You're not going to win an award for not using any help during, you know, learning this set. So use what's available. That's always going to help you go further. I've always been I never read instruction manuals. I never have, but this is something, as someone who isn't that person, I can guarantee you it's going to help you with this game if you just read everything once.
Yeah, no shame in it. I feel you about the instruction manual thing for sure as well. But oh, the poppy is stuck in the back here. So INTC was changing positioning around, so the poppy like would be free. Nautilus was going to provide an out, but then changed the cannons back to block her in. We'll see if that actually makes a difference in this round. It might, because the Ziggs from Ueckar, the Jeweled Gauntlet, is doing a lot of damage. It is only tier 1, but that might have been a difference.
Yeah, I actually think this tier 2 Ziggs is going to get at least a couple more kills.
Oh, the bombs.
That's it.
Oh, wait.
Oh, mini Hellion match. It's going to be the red side because he got the ult first auto attack, right?
Yeah. There's the 1-star. The 1-star Ziggs versus the 0-star Ziggs.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
I was like, wait, they're not the same.
No.
That was thrilling. I hope I get to see that 150 more times during this set.
Yeah.
But
let's
that
just
would
cast
mean that
only just like Hellions coming back and them like just slapping each other with autos. That's just what set 5's gonna be.
That would be like a really fun, just like ultimate bravery type tournament. Is only like you only get like 2 people in the lobby. And they're only allowed to play Hellions the whole time, and so it's just coming out of spawn.
Oh no.
I feel like that would be a fun money game. Anyway, 68 HP, 3-3. That's pretty low. And we're going to come up onto the carousel. At least we have the chain vest, which can move into a lot of different kinds of items.
Yep.
And something that I also wanted to point out here is everyone's positioning their Lux on the opposite side of their team, and that is for a reason. You're going to get the most value out of that Lux by positioning her away from the rest of your group, right? So it's also going to take some attention away from assassins as well. And Lux can tank with an with an ultimate, right? It might be an extra 1 or 2 auto attacks, but again, sometimes when you have a Rage Blade stacking up on the other side of the board, that's exactly what you want. As we move over to Sphinx's board, second place, no one on fire anymore, as our early game hero Marcel did fall, but not before winning about 8 rounds in a row.
Yeah, a lot. Marcel and Sphinx gonna be last pick. There are 2 belts available. Both people looks like wanted that shadow glove. Aren't able to get it, however. Vest is the shadow vest comes through for Sphinx. What items is he working with? You have the Shadow Morellos on the Kennen. Kennen, a wonderful applier of that. Really, the 3 that Shadow Morellos are fantastic on is going to be Kennen, and then Morgana, and then Volibear in the late game. Sure, it reduces the units' like damage that they do with their spell, but the trade-off is well worth it. You burn like 100% of the target's HP over like 25 seconds, I believe it is. So
if you don't have any intrinsic healing, you will fall in 25 seconds. It's a literal death timer that applies. And with units like Morgana and Kennen, it could literally be your whole team, right? And then again, this is what set 5 is about. All of a sudden, you're just going to need a Taric, right? You're going to need a redemption, right, to help with these things, because even if you do get healed, it's neutered already, as we do have another static Shiv Ziggs. I mean, this patch really didn't change anything. It really seems like they're just going to wait until after this tournament to really start experimenting on some of these other team comps, because this is probably what they were working on before that B patch.
Yeah, B patch just to trim down any really like outliers, but next patch to really shake up the meta. It was interesting. I'm not sure if you noticed during that fight, or if anyone watching noticed, but the Kennen on board with Sphinx, it dashed initially towards a unit that was already dead, and then sprinted all the way across the board to go to the enemy Ziggs. He reached the enemy Ziggs, but actually didn't stun nor apply the Morellos there, even though he got there, which usually does end up happening. A little strange. Not sure if that's actually always how the interaction works. Maybe it depends on how far Kennen travels, but he should always go to the furthest unit. So
after the first unit.
Yeah, after the first unit, it'll go to the furthest one, but like just reached it, but didn't actually apply the Morellos nor stun. So
I think the specification that we need is, does the stun apply on hit or after pass through, right?
Yeah.
Like, does it on contact or after you pass through the unit?
Yeah, it applies on contact, usually, because if units are in the corner, of course, you can't, like, pass through them, but it does, like, reach them. It's kind of like Pike in the last set. They changed it to, like, Pike can still stun units in the corner. It's kind of much like that. But just mean to keep an eye on, I suppose, if it happens again. Mortdog, at Mortdog on Twitter.
I call him the Mort God, because, we're all here because of him, really.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah, seriously. 3-7 coming up on one of the most important rounds in TFT, which is 4-1. You're going to see a lot of people make decisions there. So they could set themselves up for an item choice at 4-2, or potentially roll down with as much money as possible to give them some more power. Because what you don't want to happen is hit 4-1 and then do nothing. Right? Yeah. You can do that if you slow roll. Some people will do that on purpose. Like if Marcel or Sphinx decided to do that, that would honestly be an appropriate play. You have the HP economy to use that with, to lose these next couple rounds. Sphinx gets a Nikos. I think the Nikos here is a little bit better later in the game, because that 2 gold isn't as consequential as it is in the early parts of the game when you're trying to get to 10 gold. Exactly. But now we have the option of some hyper rolling. We might actually see some tier 3 units here, which we haven't seen a ton of all day today.
Yeah, it doesn't look like Sphinx is going to tier 2 this Ziggs. There is an eco there, but with Sphinx not rolling it all here, it very much speaks to, hey, 5 Hellions is going to be strong enough to get me to level 8, maybe level 9, so we're going to go for legendaries there. We're going to try to get Heimerdingers and things like that, and use that as the carry. Killjoy, the Forgotten player, has Forgotten Spat on the Mordekaiser. Very interesting. Not a typical Mordekaiser build, but still is going to output a lot of damage and be a big threat.
Well,
Killjoy
the idea,
saving gold as well.
I think, is you usually put 2 shadow items on him, right? If you want, best in slot is the QSS, right? The shadow QSS.
Yep.
And Hextech Gunblade regular.
Yep.
Right? Okay, so Forgotten would be 2 shadow items for a little bit of a buff there. And it's going to be giving Mordekaiser the same kind of damage as a Draven, which is pretty crazy with that extra kind of Forgotten power from that trait.
Yeah. I believe, yeah, the shadow items are on any Forgotten unit does buff all of them, and it stacks up to 4 times. But yeah, the Forgotten buff is really going to come into clutch, and you want to build shadow items on Forgotten units, of course. Mordekaiser benefiting a lot from that shadow Quicksilver, Gunblade. Third item is a bit more flexible, but Warmogs. You can even like benefit from going Shadow Warmogs, I think, as well, if you want a couple shadow items on just the Mordekaiser, because he's going to be healing up a lot of that damage that you're just bleeding slowly over time. It's going to be
so I wanted to take a second and look at the leaderboard because something is actually taking place. Chewy might fall out of the top 3. If the current top 3 finish in the top 3 in any order, I believe Chewy will not finish in the top 3 based on where everything is right now. So Chewy, you've got to finish in the top 3 or top 4 if you want to come back next week. Donglade's going to be playing spoiler a little bit, but look at how dominant Sphinx and Marcel have been, and that makes complete sense. These are 2 of the more experienced players in this lobby. I think they are the 2 most experienced players in this lobby. And by the time we get to the 4th one, they're starting to figure some things out. Things become more consistent, and they're going to be able to react and be proactive a little bit better versus someone like Killjoy, who needs to make something happen so we don't get shut out today.
Yeah, it needs to make something happen, and that's going to be happening with 6 Forgotten. Forgotten Mordekaiser up in the front, Legionnaire buff as well, comparing with the Draven, is trying to level up to 8 and then roll it down. Hopefully, with that gold, we'll be able to find a Mordekaiser or a Draven too. Not looking likely though, honestly, unless there's a bit of a high roll situation coming through. I have to see though.
So admittedly, there is a lot of HP on the boards, right? We have the Mordekaisers, we have the Rels and the Ironclads. Why aren't more people building Giant Slayer?
Yeah, Giant Slayer, one of the most slept on items in this set. I mean, that's a good question, Boop, and I'm not sure I'm able to fully, answer it myself. I mean, your attacks are going to do, what is it, 80% more damage if their health is above 1750? Yeah.
Which is a lot of the late game units. Just
yeah, a lot of late game units for sure. It's like a pretty crap item in the early game, but it scales very, very well. It, of course, was like super good against like brawlers traditionally, but there's not going to be brawlers in the late game. And even when it comes to damaging carries, I guess that's going to be the main thing, right? Players are going to want to itemize their carries to take out the enemy carries, right? And that comes a lot with like Karma and like Vel'Koz, even Ophelio to some extent. Draven's really one of the only ones that doesn't do that. Draven has to get through the front line first because he only hits 1 unit at a time. So I could see that being the case. I think a lot of people just value more the IE Last Whisper combo being the tank killer as opposed to Giant Slayer.
That's always been the debate, right? I remember when those items first came out, it was a little bit more debatable because Giant Slayer had a little bit of time in the spotlight. As we lose the Forgotten spat.
That's so unlucky, actually. That's crazy. So when you put the Mordekaiser items on the bench and you put the Mordekaiser 1 in, it's just like RNG. It's just like you're gambling what item pops off. It happened to be the Forgotten spat over the Jewel Gauntlet or the Sunfire Cape. And that's, yeah, it's pretty feels bad, man.
I mean, it's a 1 in 3 chance, and this is what a self-fulfilling prophecy looks like, friends. Right? I feel like you kind of get down on yourself. You've had a rough day, right? And that's not a play that you normally would go for unless you're a little bit desperate.
Yeah.
Right? And so a little bit of desperation. Sometimes desperation pays off, and that's when, honestly, some of the most hype plays in all of gaming happen. Right? When you're just like, all right, let's do this. We have no other choice.
Yeah,
right?
When the odds are against you, but you succeed, like...
it's the true underdog story,
yeah,
but that wasn't where we were. We have enough HP, right? If we weren't going to make it to chickens, then maybe. right? But at least let's wait for more items to come, right?
Yeah, it seems likely that that's, a good, solid option. Gonna put the Diana in over the Darius. Darius, of
We're
course, would
dizzy.
help the... Yeah, I mean, it's not like the worst case of, like, being dizzy I've seen. Diana is still... Like, they're both good units. The trade-off is you have backline access versus you're gonna be buffing what Draven is doing, but Draven is only the tier 1 unit. Doesn't even matter in this matchup. El Tomo just destroys Killjoy with the Vel'Koz 1.
Yeah, that
Rough
reminds
day
me
for
of like
Killjoy.
if like Goku was like Hame and then just got like flicked in the nose and fell
Yeah.
back to the spirit world with that Kindred ultimate. Like I like your Moxie Kindred, but we're just kind of delaying the departure of this train at this point in time. As Sphinx starting to lose out, which is expected for our friends who are in first, second, third place to start losing during rounds 4-1 and 5-1, because if you're already winning during rounds 3-1 to 4-1, you are econing, right? Which means that other people are spending money and will be stronger than you at 4-1, and then you're going to be doing the same to them going into 5-1, which is going to set you up for the late game better. So if you are wondering what the science behind, what is happening between the top-sided leaderboard and why they're losing so much, you can assume that that's probably a reason.
Yeah. Back to Marcel's board, and I'm actually really glad that we're here because I want to see how Marcel pivots this early game slamming of items into a late game winnable scenario. There's the RFC, the Ziggs Bleak Herald, and 2 Warmogs. Like, this does not scale well very often. We have a Kale direction, but how is Kale going to carry this game? The Gunblade could come through. That's not even that amazing, however. Trying to find something. It could be a Draven. 2 Dravens on the board. Yeah, Draven 2. Okay. RFC, one of the best Draven items. Six Bleak Herald coming through.
Oh, did it not? Oh no! What happened there? Oh, I guess he just didn't. Huh. I felt like that's TFT for you sometimes. Sometimes I feel like my item is right on the character and it will go on the character next to it. Maybe that's me. Maybe it's Marcel, but that was a little unfortunate that happened just then. The
Yeah.
RFC will be nice and the Bloodthirster will be too, but this flat attack speed is going to be pretty hard to get through.
Yeah. Chewy running Kale yet again, I believe.
Kale 2?
Yeah, at level 8 with like triple items. Hey, take some notes, everybody. Kale, that's a carry. She's back.
Yeah, I really think so too. It's just one of those things that if the game ever gets long, right? If the late game starts being slow matchups, right? With ironclads and knights everywhere, Kale will be good, right? Because what does Kale need to get better? She doesn't have a traditional ultimate. She needs time, right? And even getting tier 2 isn't going to make that time any shorter. You're just going to be doing a lot more damage with a little bit more base attack speed. And so when you get to this Kale and you're at a point in the game where like these two comps aren't going to just wipe each other off of the map, right? There's going to be a little bit of time. Let's actually see. So this is a 30-second round completely. We'll check the time at the end, right? It takes 15 seconds to transform into the AoE Kale and then 20 seconds to do the big Kale, which would just be happening right now, right? And so this fight's not over just yet, but if you had a Kale, even with that Mordekaiser, with that time, that Kale might have been able to push this fight in the other direction.
Yeah, potentially. Kale 1 would be hard to do so. Kale 2, damage difference could have. Oh, wow, that shop might actually save Marcel in this game. Rolling both Mordekaisers is actually so insane. Mordekaiser can now actually be a threat alongside the Draven. That's huge.
Yep, we have the Dragon Slayer. If you're ever running the Mordekaiser, you really got to get that Diana in there. That Dragon Slayer buff is one of the few like entire team buffs that you get in this set. And so once Dragon Slayer gets a kill, then they're going to be doing even more damage. And for Mordekaiser, that's huge. As we're going to start moving some peeps around, we do get our 3 Forgottens in, but I don't believe we have any Forgotten bonuses right now, other than the QSS.
There's the Ziggs, Shadow Ziggs that's on the Draven.
Not QSS, sorry.
Yeah. But yeah, that is the only one. So buffs those bonuses by 10%. Draven trying to do a lot of work in the back line while Mordekaiser's tanking, and it looks like might be able to do so. The Karma hits are not going to be quite powerful enough. Bloodthirster healing is there. Marcel takes down Ueckar in the matchup. Ueckar will not fall. But Killjoy will in 8th. Again, rough day of games for Killjoy, unfortunately. But hopefully we'll see them in the future.
And look at where Chewie ended up being. All of a sudden was at risk of finishing in the bottom 2, but with that Kale is on fire now and might compete for that top 4. This is really starting to shape up as a race for this top 4 because Duskglade and Sphinx, remember, are tied. So whoever finishes ahead of the other one will have a better chance at getting into that top 3 just inherently. And so you only need the 1 point at this point in time. So Sphinx and Duskglade are kind of just looking at each other, especially since they're Sphinx definitely in a position to top 4 right now with that HP. Everyone else still, anything can happen with the amount of HP here. It's pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, it still is pretty close to just an HP, right? Even between Sphinx and even down to like El Tomo, there's like a, what, like 19 HP gap there? Still, that's like one fight.
Especially since we're getting into round 6 here soon, and we have 7 people potentially getting to the dragon. Where is the Zephyr going to go? Not a ton of Zephyrs, because I think a lot of people just using up their belts and cloaks so quickly in this set that you're actually not really seeing a ton of Zephyrs. So the value of it being completed on a carousel or an NPC round just got even higher.
Got double Zephyrs there, but neither find their way into the back line. Viego gets thrown out by the Syndra as well, so he steals a frontline unit, allows Vel'Koz the time to cast. Jax is still here, though. Jax is still alive. Oh, maybe not for too much longer, though.
That attack speed is going to keep going faster, but that CC from Volibear is insane. It
no
is
Quicksilver Jax diff.
Yep, it is the biggest CC in the game, I believe. And it feels like... You know what I mean? There are some moves that are like meant to be felt, and that move from Volibear is meant to be felt. It needs to be in your bones. The Thunder God, right? And I think the fantasy is there, but also it's tough. That is and it's a long piece of CC too. It really, that singular unit makes you really think about QSSs.
Definitely does. Pantheon going to replace the Nidalee, which means we can free up our Shroud to get maybe a Shroud Cheese win. Because there's 2 Jaxes away from Jax 3. Jax 3 is what skirmishers need to win a lobby, but we have to get to that point first. 1 Shroud on the right-hand side from Kennen, other Shroud on the left-hand side. Basically everything on the opposing board is shrouded.
Yeah. Remember, friends, that skirmishers are not that popular. When it comes to what we've seen today, usually just one person is running it. But Hurricane, i.e. Bloodthirsters, I mean, that Jax is going to be... hitting. I mean, might as well, instead of this is not even a real weapon. Imagine if that was an actual tree trunk, because that's what it's going to feel like. Yeah,
definitely. But it will, or it won't, excuse me, if it gets CC'd, right? That was the problem in the previous matchup. Fortunately, it wasn't here. Ueckar does fall to the skirmishers, and the Jax INTC drops to 8 HP. Sphinx falls to 18. Sphinx is also within potential one-shot lethal range moving forward into stage 6.
Yep, and a GA here, and all of our good GA users are fully teched out. And so we also have the dark version of the Thief's Gloves on Viego, and so we're going to get double procs off of that with the Forgotten trait too. But I would actually say this Jax is a lot closer. If, again, you're kind of reviewing spirits, I think Jax has the closest relationship. We only need 1 more. We have the Nikos. I'll wait to finish my thought until after this roll, because I definitely want to see it.
Rel 2 goes in over. Ooh, that's like 12 gold that we could have used to try to find Jaxes with, though.
True.
I mean, if we find the Jax, it's going to be way better than what a Rel 2 will offer.
Yeah. But anyway, I was actually thinking Jax is like a worse Olaf. If you really want to like think about it, like a lot of the same items, a lot of the same kind of thought process behind them carrying without the CC immunity.
The Shroud actually goes on too late, so Duskglade did not get that extra Shroud value, which maybe actually makes the difference. Mordekaiser gets to ulti faster than everybody else. The Jax is CC'd.
Yeah, the skirmishers, they're not moving right now. The Mordekaiser will res. Is that Bloodthirster going to have enough time to help this Mordekaiser come back? No, as Marcel falls in 5th place, INTC in 6th. So we've got El Tomo, who is going to play spoiler this time around, and Sphinx actually going to fall in 4th.
Wow.
So Chewie will finish in the top 3, and so will Dawn Duskglade, actually, because they finished ahead of Sphinx, and that's all they needed to do, and they finished in the top 3. So we'll see what happens between Marcel and Sphinx, I think, for 3rd place.
Yeah, if Duskglade wins and Chewy gets 3rd, then I'm pretty sure Duskglade would win the event. But we'll have to see where the placements do shake out. Chewy is well above everybody in HP at 36 and on a win streak. A good shroud here from Duskglade going up against the Vel'Koz board. Can the Jax make it happen again?
Is going to eat that Vel'Koz ultimate completely through. Thank goodness we have that Bloodthirster, but not for long. And for the first time today, I think we've seen the Vel'Koz overcome another carry.
Maybe a couple times you've seen it, but yeah, not often.
Yeah, I might be a little facetious, but that's what it feels like. As a double loss happens, actually, as El Tomo and Chewy will be the last 2 remaining people in this last lobby. El Tomo on 1 life. That's it. 1 loss, that's it. Chewy's got 2. I don't know if we're even going to make it to this next carousel. Also, these items on Derek are hilarious.
Yeah.
And they're not bad when you think about it either.
This is so fascinating, actually. The Rage Blade, sure, you're going to be killing yourself over time, but you heal back up, of course, with the Redemption and just being able to cast the ultimates. This is real interesting, actually. Let's see how much value this Taric has, but the Vel'Koz is going to start, chewing through him real quickly. Can he cast? Oh, he does.
We got 1, and the Redemption actually goes off at the same time, and so we're going to keep going. We're going to kill the Redemption. This is cool. Yeah. I actually think that could work if it wasn't round 6-3, right? If it was around like 5-1 with those same items, that probably would have been a little bit more hype, as El Tomo is going to even this up.
16 HP to 11. One other loss like that could be the end for Chewy. Chewy does have like 50 gold in the bench, it looks, 50 gold, it looks like, so they could roll it down, find the things like Garen 2. A couple Tarics as well. Are we going to see Taric 3? Probably not. No, we're just going to level to 9. Yeah.
Taric 3 with Rageblade, Redemption, Shojin.
Okay, Garen 2.
Not? We do find that Garen, and that's going to help with any Nightbringers or Covens, I believe, on the other team.
Mystics coming as well. 3 Mystics
so if you're
versus
Morgana, I guess you just don't want to see Garen. But yeah, we're also going to put the Zephyr on the Lux, who is the most versatile in terms of positioning that you can have on this current board. So we're going to put her in the corner. That was a last-minute change. You put her in the middle, so the opponent has to guess, and they guessed correctly.
Yeah, they hit the Soraka, not the best unit to hit, but still not terrible. The Vel'Koz from El Tomo is going to be solid, but it's not going to hit the Kale of Chewy, and that's the big unit. How much can this Kale scale up? How much can the Kale do? Now she gets targeted.
Oh, but the GA is going to proc. Oh my goodness. Hi.
The Kale has scaled.
Oh, hi. Hello. Oh, see you later.
That'll
Goodbye.
be it. Chewy will take the win, and Chewy will take our first Fight Night Rising on set 5, Reckoning, with a kill board nonetheless. These units are B-patched, these 4-cost carries everyone knew and loved. Mordekaiser, Aphelios, there's like, nah, see you later. We're going Kale. Good old carry, Kale comp, and it works out.
Good old Kale. Oh, Kyle. What would we do without you? Your sister's here too, Morgana, also a very good unit. We didn't really see a lot of her, but I'm sure once the patch comes back, units like Morgana and Yasuo are going to find a little bit more playtime. I just think 3-star units could have a little bit of help right now. But overall, that was super cool, man. How do you feel about your first go at casting this set?
Second go, I suppose, technically, but
that's true.
Yeah, even still, I mean, it's a blast, and with that in mind, right? Not even the first time, but there's still so much to process and dissect and like work through, and we're not nearly done with it, right? It's going to be constantly evolving and changing, and we're going to rediscover, continually rediscover the meta and what that will be, and how do we maximize everything, right? Adding a whole set of new items, like I can't understate how much value that actually has on competitive TFT as a whole. Like, it is absolutely insane, and we get to see that come through with what compositions people run and tech item choices. It's just so fantastic. We do have the scores ready overall for all of our competitors tonight, and of course it will be Chewy winning with 33 points. Duskglade in second with 28, and Marcel looks like winning the tiebreakers against Sphinx because, okay, tiebreaker rules, if you haven't been informed, have changed. Before, Sphinx would have won the tiebreaker because he had most wins, but now it goes to average placement, and Marcel wins out on that front. So Marcel, it looks like, is going to be coming back for next week over Sphinx, but Sphinx will still get some of that money.
Man, that second 8, we had talked about this, that you don't have to win a lobby to make it back, right?
Exactly.
Consistency is key. Marcel represented consistency and gets him into next week. Unfortunately for Sphinx, the Booposaurus curse continues.
Oh no.
I don't understand why this keeps happening. I'm sorry. As we lose a tiebreaker. So back from literally Sphinx's first tournament, if I cast Sphinx, it is just, it's like an 80-20 of if my presence is there or not for Sphinx's success. Is at least what I feel like. This is what we talk about.
You know, any Sphinx lovers say we got to get Boop off the broadcast. We got to stop him from cursing him.
Like, if Sphinx ever goes to Worlds and it's like, and Booposaurus with the cast, everyone's just, oh no. Unfortunately, and we're going to lose in like the worst way possible, which is the new tiebreaker. Because I wonder if Sphinx probably was like, oh, I got it, I finished. Oh no, it's changed. Right. And so I bet it's a roller coaster of emotion. But I mean, what a cool day today. We had Karma get a couple maps. We've seen a lot of Mordekaiser, a lot of Aphelios, but I think the biggest change was Kale.
Yeah, Kale and skirmishers are things that do stick out in my mind. Yeah, for sure. Like, Jax was a weird unit. Didn't really have a place just because he was overshadowed by other 4-cost carries, but now with them being kind of put into place, Jax can finally seem okay now. And Kale was really good in the PBE for set 5. Definitely fell off, but has now made a resurgence, and I love seeing the meta shifts happening and seeing who's going to come out on top of those. That's really going to be in the forefront of my mind, and we're going to have a whole lot of people rediscovering what this B patch really has to offer before we come here again for next week. Like, there's going to be probably a whole new approach on at least like a couple different compositions.
I totally agree, and this is a very fluid meta right now. If someone says this is it, this is the solution, don't believe them. There's no way they can know. There's not enough math available, I think, in order to truly say that you know exactly what's good or bad right now. Especially since we just had a B patch to some units that apparently are still really strong.
Yeah.
And and if those units were nerfed and are still really strong, imagine what they were before. One, and then two. Which means that it might even be more balanced now, right? And that we might just have access to a bunch of team comps, and if you win or not is going to be more lobby dependent than player dependent, right? In terms of what units you're using, what you're comfortable running. I think flexibility is going to be a much more valuable asset in this set than any other set in the past.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I thought Marcel and Sphinx would find success today, and they did, right? Unfortunately for Sphinx, it wasn't success in an average type of way.
So close, so close.
Yeah.
Hey, you get $25 at least to go home with, but yeah, flexibility and adaptability, I'm right there with you, Boop. Those are the keys when it comes to set 5, at least at the beginning, but unfortunately we're not going to have an interview today, so I'll just pass it back to you, Boop, if you have any final thoughts before we wrap things up here.
It's time for a reckoning, my friends. Not just for my LP, but for yours too. So if there's anything that I learned today, try to run that Kale, try to run that Karma along with that Aphelios, and that just because something gets nerfed doesn't mean it's bad. That's kind of like my takeaways of today.
Definitely. I think my takeaways of today definitely feels bad, man, for Sphinx to not get the top 3. I'm sure we'll see him again in the future, but lose the new tiebreakers, hate to see it, but I'm just excited to see how players will, learn over the course of the week, as I said before, and approach this, next time. But until next time, Boop, we will be having a bit of a rest, but we'll be back next week for more Fight Night Rising. Take care, stay tuned, and we'll see you next time.